A group of adventurers stands in front of the entrance to the ancient and dangerous dungeon, known for being lurked by greedy travelers with a light wealth, but hides deadly traps. Some of them are so fatal that you should not approach. But despite this, the group is determined, and the student calmly asks the mentor about the next step. In a dark hall full of threatening creatures, a young man with a cold look and a barely noticeable smile orders to expel uninvited guests. Around the monster is ready to do the will of the owner. This is the story of the alchemist, which was expelled. But instead of disappearing, he rose and became the most powerful owner of the dungeon in the world. The capital of Alarara is spread out in equal quarters and rose streets. Above the roofs, the city lives in the usual rhythm. It is at this time that rumors are spreading the city. Something is discussed in the local tavern. Inside the noisy tavern, visitors enthusiastically glorify the hero Alan and his team for victory over the formidable dungeons of Algrabros. Among the toasts and ovations of Alan is called the perfect hero and a living legend. But among the overall enthusiasm, a modest remark is heard, even such as they are not perfect. In the laboratory, among the flasks and books, the fascinated alchemist with a smile watching a new potion in Kazan. But suddenly it begins to rage unexpectedly, lifting a couple. Surprised, he closely monitors the reaction. Young alchemist year, Elo Holdley celebrates success. The potion was done. Its task is to create alchemical items that help seekers in dangerous missions. Despite the light-hearted attitude, its role is extremely important for the success of any team. The laboratory enters the hero Alan, the famous swordmaster and the winner of the many dungeons. Admire, the year shows fresh potion, but Alan says she has a serious conversation. Without long introductions, Alan coldly announces, the river is excluded from the group. The news causes the alchemist by surprise in the moment when it reached out the complete potion. The year, stunned, does not even have time to answer. In shock, he asks, "Is it a joke?" But Alan replies sharply, "Not at all." He explains that the decision was common. The whole team agreed. The year cannot believe it and shouts that it is a lie. Without understanding the reasons, the year asks, why was he expelled? Alan calmly explains, they found the best alchemist. Then Dorma Gregan enters the room, confident, cold, not interested in the river. It clearly makes it clear that it has nothing to do with it, but the replacement is final. Alan adds that from now on it will occupy a river room. Despite the confusion of the alchemist, Alan insists, it is normal to free up the space after expulsion. After all, the room was only in temporary use. Puzzled and depressed, the year remembers the times when he lived next to Alan and Victor, trying to understand why everything has changed. But Alan explodes the accusations, calls the river burden, an idiot that is attached to research and only interfered. Without hiding the contempt, he adds, the year has never been approached for this team, and the year itself swallows the pain, restraining emotions. Nevertheless, it extends the Dormless potion, trying at least to prove its value. At first surprised, Dorma acknowledges that she expected from a river of a certain level. He was part of the heroic team. But in a moment, she arrangedly states that the potion is not difficult, and she will do the same. Disrespect him, considering him full zero. The humiliated year runs, and Alan only shrugs. He is indifferent to the weak. He orders Dorma to prepare for a new dungeon, ignoring everything as if it were a trifle. Dorma gives way to understanding, but coldly throws. The one who was kicked out of the former team looks pathetic. Alan only summarizes that the year has never been worthy of standing next to the hero. Now all his hopes are on the dorm, but she smiles confidently and promises not to let. Lonely in the forest, the year falls to the ground, broken and betrayed. Tears flow quietly on the cheeks, and the heart still does not believe in everything that has happened. He remembers how many times he saved Alan with potions. Despite the pain, decides to move on. It will sell its potions and earn, even with the burden of betrayal inside. Traveling the forest, the year suddenly finds the Elfine unconscious among the flowers, wounded and exhausted. Surprised, he immediately rushes to her, struck by what she saw. An unknown girl in a very serious condition. Without delay, he tries to help. The girl is barely audible for salvation. Noticing her wings, the year understands. It is not a person before him. It is called Yuri, the spirit of the dungeon. The guy is stunned by such an unexpected truth. Now the year is aware. It is something much larger than he imagined. The spirits of the dungeons really exist and have a human likeness. Yuri, barely breathing, says that he dies with lack of energy. To survive, she has to conclude a contract with a person. He reaches out his hand and begs the river to agree. But at the same moment, a wolfie, a creature that should not be in the area, appeared in front of the river. She rushes to the attack. The year does not have time to dodge and flies to the side of a powerful blow. It is difficult to hit the ground. The wounded and too weak for battle, he hesitated, watching the beast approaching a threatening roar. But, seeing that Yuri is on the verge of death, he makes a decision. Not even fully understanding the consequences, he is ready to act. He extends his hand and agrees to the contract, risking everyone to save the spirit. In the moment when the contract is concluded, they are covered by a bright radiance. Yuri smiles, relieves. The connection is created. Something changes at once. The wolf that stood in front of them begins to grow and quickly transforms. And the year is surprised to watch the strange reaction. But right afterwards, the black energy ball is swallowed by the river. His body draws inside. He screams with surprise. When he comes out, he manifests himself in the mysterious space, suspended in the void. Not understanding what is happening, suddenly begins to fall. Stunned and frightened, the year opens his eyes inside the majestic unknown structure. Looking around, he sees Yuri, who gladly reports, "The dungeon is completed. The contract has created a new dungeon, and he is now her lord." The year worries, asks whether everything is well with. She sincerely thanks him, calling his master, or lover, jokingly. But this moment interrupts the return of the angry wolf. He is still alive. Yuri responds instantly. The river throws an unknown object, warning that the threat has not yet passed. The year catches a strange book and knows. It is a dungeon catalog, the key to its new power. Yuri enthusiastically pushes the river to create a monster. She explains that now, as the owner of the dungeon, he has full power, can create creatures and set his own rules. Without hesitation, the year decides to use the catalog. He buys 5 monsters' eggs, spending precious podmeal points. Eggs begin to crack one by one. Meanwhile, the wolf is coming to the river, but new creatures are about to be born. Goblins break out of the debris. They immediately rush on the wolf, attacking from all sides. The year watches with surprise, and Yuri smiles satisfied. The allies justified themselves. While the goblins are achieving the enemy, Yuri confesses. For 9 years he has been looking for the owner. Without contract, spirits disappear after 10, and it was already on the verge. Angry, she calls herself a failure, but she sincerely thanks the river for the chance. Her frankness, he looks silently at her without expecting such a sincerity. The year promises to do everything possible to build a large dungeon without even knowing what he is capable of. Yuri shares his desire and swears to be nearby, listen to every word. Touched, she hugs him firmly, and even goblins swear allegiance. Stunned by unity, the year smiles sincerely. Yuri explains, now when he becomes the owner, he must protect the dungeon. He will have to defend his possessions from adventure seekers and wild monsters. She urges to prepare for attacks and promises to become his leader. And it is at this moment. The year understands the seriousness of the situation. He is now the official enemy of humanity, and sooner or later he will have to face Alan and former comrades. Lying side by side, Yuri sincerely says he is ready to do anything for the river, if it is his will. She asks for permission to stay with him forever. The year, embarrassed, is silent. Yuri watches him, breathing hard and not fully realizing what he is feeling. The year is finally moving to the case. It recalculates what he needs. Copper distiller, scalpel, boiling boiler. Goblins are instantly searched, but Yuri rotely interrupts it, scares the number of tools and substances. She asks what he is going to do with all this. The year is thinking about what he got into. He recalls how he accidentally concluded a contract with Yuri. Fate pushed him without any plan. Looking at her, he understands. Except her ears and wings, she looks like an ordinary girl. And no matter how tried to ignore, Yuri is really very sweet. Feeling his gaze, Yuri is concerned about what is wrong. The year tries to stop thoughts by convincing himself. He helped only because it is right. It is embarrassed, he looks at and says that all is well. But at heart knows, from now on they are forever connected. Yuri explains, the energy of the dungeon is measured by points, dungeon points or DP. They can be spent on creating monsters, traps, and various objects. The year is enthusiastically learned that it can produce both ordinary and adventure equipment. He even dreams of his own workshop. But Yuri is strictly reminiscent. It is forbidden. Yet he cannot hold back the admiration for such opportunities. She explains, the dungeon absorbs the vital energy from monsters and adventure seekers, turning it into DP. Treasures are only a bait, and the threats are constant, such as a wolf. Yuri insists, the year must first take care of protection, to create monsters and traps, and only then spend points on their own tights. The year confesses that although the environment is ideal for the alchemist, now his main mission is to protect everything as a lord. Yuri informs that now there are only those creatures in his dungeon that he has already created. These are goblins and slimmies, all the rank of G, the weakest of the possible. The year asks whether the monsters are created by accident. Yuri confirms. It all depends on luck. Getting 5 monsters in a rank G in a row is a rarity, but he was not lucky. The guy thinks of spending the remnant of points to expand the dungeon, and hesitates. It is risky. Yuri invites him to stand up to fight, but he is strongly opposed. He considers it meaningless. He is an alchemist, not a warrior. But imagining the waves of enemies, he feels pressure. Asks if it looks strong. Yuri gently replies, even if he is weak, her feelings will not change. And here the river illuminates the idea. He remembered something. Asks Yuri if all the monsters created completely obey the owner. Hearing the affirmative answer, he smiles strongly and asks her to prepare something for the experiment. The scene is transferred to the capital of Ali, hinting the plan of the river goes beyond its dungeon. In the capital, hero Alan sits at a table with his team. The associate tries to cheer him up, but Alan is silently boiling. Something bothers him. He begins to reproach the group members for mistakes on the latest mission. First, he reads Matilda for unsuccessful magic, which did not impress the enemy's vulnerable fire. Then he presses on the fits for the wrong target. Despite the attempts of others to mitigate the atmosphere, Alan remains demanding. The idealism of the hero only exacerbates the conflict. In the end, he openly expresses his dissatisfaction with Dorma, criticizing his actions, tactics, and support. Driven into a corner, Dorma begins to apologize, shaking with shame and tension. Alan asks himself whether his team's ideality was just an illusion. Even the new ally did not live up to expectations. Victor intervenes, asks Alan to stop the pressure. He tries to settle the situation, reminding that Dorma was a newcomer and was fond of heroes. Alan is silently watching, then cold and powerfully orders Dorma to leave, finally closing the topic. When the team tries to move further, someone confesses. Since the year left, everything went wrong. Victor agrees that they really made many mistakes. The Dorsma is embarrassed to tears, and Marie, the healer, tries to cheer her up, but the atmosphere remains depressing. Alan loses control, with anger beats on the table. One thing is in memory. Everything went wrong. It is justified. It was a call of only G, not serious. The hero should pass the ranks of SSS, not the little things. Feeling sabotage, its rage only grows. With a frantic look, he breaks the furniture. He shouts why he was stopped. In his eyes, anger and a manic desire to prove his strength. He thinks he would have coped if he only used that. It is simply not lucky, but really forgot to activate one important thing. Remembering her, he focuses on flasks and alchemical instruments, murmuring, "Monster synthesis?" The year explains, the synthesis of monsters is a form of alchemy. Although he is not a specialist, he read about it. Yuri is surprised by his memory, but the year is confident. It is usual for alchemists. He calculates that the right ingredients and 300 DP will give a chance. The goal is to evolve the monster from the rank G immediately to D, bypassing 2 classes. Inspired, the year decides to test this idea immediately. It starts synthesis, first mixes chemical reagents. Then it removes the magic stone from the goblin body, then puts the body in a cauldron and begins to mix the mixture. Although the method is rude, it concludes, it is enough to add only magic stone. Yuri follows him with horror, and a year, in dirt and fatigue, confesses. Alchemy is much more complex than he thought. Together with Yuri, they complete the synthesis ritual. The cauldron begins to boil madly, emitting powerful light. A huge, formidable creature comes out of the mixture. The earth shudders, and a year looks at its new creation. The year is surprised to consider a giant creature with a single eye, a cyclop of rank A. Its size is striking. But even passionate, he hesitates. What if the monster does not listen? Despite the alarm, the year still tries to give the team. The cyclop obeys the order and sits down, demonstrating the full dedication to the new master. The year with Yuri sighs relief. Everything went well. Monster, whose chance of falling less than 2% is now under control. This is a real success. Yuri notes that the cyclop of 6 levels exceeds goblins, and this is not typical. The year thinks whether it is fate, but he does not have time to think. Yuri is sharply feeling someone's presence and shouting. An uninvited guest appeared in the dungeon. Through the crystal ball, they see the lonely seeker of adventure approaching their floor. Judging by weapons, he is somewhere in B or C. Yuri says that even with 10 comrades, he would not have a chance against the Cyclop. But on his own. The year is preparing to give an order, but he hesitates. He is given doubts. Does he really want to injure and maybe kill a person? While doubts cover the mind, the year hides emotions and says Yuri that everything is fine, but he is not sure inside. After all, he still orders. The roar cyclop rushes to a stranger who does not understand how the rank's creature got into the dungeon of the rank G. Before he has time to react, the cyclop causes a devastating blow, instantly completing the battle. The hero breaks his chest, he breaks away, hitting the wall. His body falls to the ground without signs of life, in full silence. The cyclop remains unwavering, standing quietly, as if waiting for the next instruction. The year with Yuri rejoices, because they have gained many points of dungeons, and something inside the river is disturbing. He smiles, but at heart feels anxiety. Yuri asks what happened, but he is lying. Nothing. He is frightened by what he did not feel pity, killing a person. Meanwhile, new eggs hatch, and only weak monsters appear again. The year is disappointed. Yuri tries to cheer. Synthesis can still help. The year says he does not hope for another luck. It will not be easy to create another cyclop. And suddenly, something with force erupts outwards. The explosion throws River and Yuri on the ground. A new monster with a formidable roar appears. Hearing the rick, the year immediately recognizes the creature. It is a hippo. Undoubtedly a real beast before him. Yuri reveals that this creature is the result of his special ability. A year shocked. He did not even know that he had such a rare and dangerous force. Yuri explains that the synthesis usually gives a maximum of +3 rank, but the year has created a creature of rank A from ranking materials G. This is a real phenomenon. The year is amazed. He is able to go beyond the usual restrictions of alchemy. His ability is unique. He is probably born to be the owner of the dungeon. Perhaps this is his true vocation. Yuri supports him. Everyone has a place where he shines. Her faith adds to the Rykov's strength. Inspired, it takes on a new synthesis. But looking at the giant hippos, he thinks, because once it was difficult for him to cope with such a creature. Yuri asks what happened, but the year is waving. They say nothing important. And the expression of the monster's face, and his roar, testify that ancient memories have not gone away. The hippo insanely rushes to the detachment, ripping forward. Warriors are forced to detain him with all their forces until the year in despair prepares the potion, and his comrades are pressed on it. Among the chaos, he assures that he almost finished and mixes the ingredients feverishly. Finally, it is finished potion he throws Alan at the most critical moment. Alan catches him and prepares for the last blow, as an angry hippo carries his rage. Without hesitation, the hero drinks a potion. He is ready to meet the attack. Time stops when the beast is approaching. The year passes the potion, Alan grabs it, looks forward, and it causes a powerful blow. It cuts the monster without giving chances. After the battle, the body of the hippos falls deaf. The relief team celebrates victory. All are admired by Alan's power, but the year, despite the overall joy, is watching silently, with a look full of doubt. He runs to the meeting too late, begged. He is forgiven, but he is informed. The decision on the next dungeon has already been made. In response, he puts a tray with bottles on the table. It is stunning everyone. The year explains that he has completely devoted himself. Research after the last mission. He used hippo materials to create a potion with unique properties. Shows them and transmits to Victor endurance potions. It accelerates recovery and enhances protection. Victor jokes that it is a bust, but recognizes the potion is truly useful. The year wants to show Alan's potion, but he roughly interrupts it. The hero refuses with disdain, calling him in vain. Then he looks angry at the river and reproaches sharply. Does he still not understand his role in the team? Alan is severely criticized by the alchemist. He says he is useless, and is only kept through those golden potions. Despite Victor's attempts to reassure tension, others agree. They have a magician and a healer, so there is no need for ordinary potions. The year smiles artificially, agrees. But inside he remembers the time when they would not survive without his skills. And now he realizes, his value in the team disappears rapidly. The year thinks, does it make sense to continue to participate in missions? But Yuri cheers. You can help differently. Not even at war, it can strengthen stocks and create unique objects. The year is aware that the strength of the alchemist, in the ability to understand the situation and create solutions at the right time. It analyzes available tools, teleport platform, and charming paper for communication. The year understands that its benefit goes far beyond the battle. It is valuable in the strategy and managing the dungeons. When peace is around, Yuri asks whether the owner is tired. The year confesses that he wants to sleep. Yuri replies that the spirits are not needed. Thinking about rest, the year thinks, can you create a pillow? For the points of the dungeon, even in such a situation. He says he can sleep even on the floor, to have a pillow. Yuri watches with interest how he saves DP without creating a bed. Seeing his intention to fall asleep, Yuri suddenly suggests, let her kneel. The year is shocked and salted. He refuses, they say, it is inconvenient, but Yuri insists. The owner can use any part of her body without hesitation. She smiles, and a year, red like cancer, does not know how to react. Lying on her knees, he is tense but gradually relaxes. To discharge the atmosphere, he proposes to make a real bed next time. Meanwhile, Yuri is gently telling him to sleep peacefully. The year remains to lie down, but cannot fully relax. Alarming moments come to life again. He remembers the killed adventure seeker and confesses himself. He did not feel any guilt. Yuri notices that he is not sleeping and is trying to talk about yesterday. But the year silently struck in heavy thoughts. He thinks, although he did not strike a deadly blow, he still felt nothing. And as a man, he would have. Yuri explains, this can be the result of a contract. After all, after the connection, the year is related not only to it, but also to the dungeons themselves. For the spirit, the death of the invaders is part of the natural cycle. So the year begins to doubt. And did he remain a person if the murder no longer evokes any emotions? But Yuri gently hugs him and says, he is still her master, the only one who is able to manage this place. The year, still confused, gradually accepts its new role. Now he is sure that his fate is the owner of the dungeon. At this point, at night, a lone girl comes to the door of the house, holding a hat and desperately shouting a river by name. Meanwhile, a new group is coming to the dungeon G. It is headed by Randall Moitz, an experienced seeker. Their level is within the rank B. They are suspicious to consider entering. Although the dungeon is weak, no one has passed it for a whole month. Internal structure, monsters, traps, everything remains a mystery. No experienced researcher returned. Randall comments, it is similar to a classic trap for self-confident veterans. He is convinced that the previous ones were killed because of carelessness, and his group is able to retreat on time. The rest supports, full of pride for themselves, consider themselves better than those who have failed. They decide to prove their advantage by exceeding their predecessors. But when they come, they are covered by a fierce attack. One of the team members immediately punches through. All in the shock. In the dungeon of the rank of G appeared high-level monsters. One of the fighters in despair mentions the promise of the mother to become a worthy seeker. And now before him, death, horror, and pity. Another dreams of the future with a pregnant lover, but he is instantly crushed by the monster. Chaos and blood around. Another grabbing and killing in a moment. The scene turns into a massacre. The group in a panic screams and escapes, realizing this is not their level. One of the finders dreams of tranquility on retirement. But her thoughts break off when the hippo looks at her straight into her eyes. The next moment, the monster brutally devours her, and her friend hardens from shock. He fades before creating, and the year, watching from afar, recognizes the same hippo that he once created. The year understands. Something is wrong. Seeing the fugitive, he decides to give her a chance. He acknowledges that killing everyone in a row is harmful to the reputation of the dungeon. The solid massacre harms the image of the place. The dungeons need visitors to accumulate points. But if everyone is dying, no one will come. This will destroy his plans. The year shares the idea. If the part is left alive, they will spread the rumors of the dungeon, and it will attract new, stronger seekers. After all, he knows, they will handle them without problems. He wants to use this to collect as much DP as possible. Its purpose is not to be limited, but to reveal the full potential of the dungeon. The dungeon rises to the rank of F, and Yuri happily welcomes the river with a breakthrough. She says, to manage the dungeons, his true vocation. The reason for the rise is not just a victory, but the fact that he forced the seekers to flee, contributing to the development of the place. The year learns, now his dungeon, rank F. This was made possible by the accumulated 10,000 DP. The new level updates the creation catalog. New tools are now available, even for alchemy. The year is delighted with new opportunities. He understands, to release seekers means to show some of the strength of the dungeon. It attracts stronger enemies. So he decides, time to increase defense, has resources and is not going to delay. It is preparing for a new synthesis of monsters, this time with maximum seriousness. Meanwhile, on one of the lower floors of the SS rank, the other group stumbles on a real slaughterhouse. Alan, their leader, stands in silence, all in cold sweat. Even despite his comrades' attempts to reassure him, he feels the burden of responsibility for what they saw. Someone from the detachment begins to doubt the safety of the mission. One confesses. He is not as strong as Alan and is ready to give up. And Alan cannot calm down. His ability must be activated in threat but did not work again. He does not understand. Why did his strength again suffered? There is something wrong here. The mood in the team deteriorates. The tension increases. Everyone feels the danger of this mysterious dungeon. Everyone remembers how last the characters were forced to retreat. Some doubt, others already regret that have gone here. And suddenly, in this uncertainty, there is an unexpected offer. Victor proposes to return the river to the team. Perhaps it is not enough to succeed. The team discusses the change in Alan's behavior. Marie hints that the problem could begin after the river was kicked out. Victor notes, although the Dorma is slow, its potion is more powerful than Rich's. But it concludes, the difference between alchemists is hardly the reason for the destabilization of Alan. The real voltage source is still unclear. The team recognizes that after the exile, the river became more tense, especially Alan. Marie confesses, though the Dorm and talented, one skill is not enough. The atmosphere has changed. Someone feels constant anxiety. Others, pressure that was not there before. Subsequently, everyone is aware. It was the year that created a balance and comfort that the new team could not give. They remember the river with heat, clumsy, stirred in potions, but he was hardworking, smiling and stable even in the most difficult situations. His quiet support rescued them again and again. Unnoticed for everyone. Now everyone confesses. The expulsion was a mistake, even if Alan had their reasons. While the group remembers the past, the question arises, can Alan apologize to the river? They understand that even if they want to correct everything, the problem can be deeper. In the mental state of Alan, and recognition will only exacerbate the situation. The conversation ends in silence. Everyone understands that the voltage in the team is only increasing. During the dialogue, it turns out that no one really knows how Alan's strength is activated, so they decide not to press. The moment is too fragile. It is better to follow the situation and wait for the right time to take action. Dorma, staying alone, calmly analyzes. Documents and conducts experiments in the laboratory. She doubts that the whole problem is only in Alan, maybe something deeper here. Feeling that something is missing, she is dripping the reagent in the flask. A new experiment in search of answers. The year watches the monsters created by a giant cyclop, royal mucus and mysterious arachnid. Although their level is high, he realizes he lacks a decisive blow. This makes you think. It is necessary to further strengthen the military power for the safety of the dungeon. He again evaluates the three. Cyclop, Mucus King, and Arachnide. There is power, but something key is not enough. The year decides to improve tactics and arsenal. He understands that personal power must complement the monsters to maintain complete control over the situation. The year thinks, what? How to try to synthesize only monsters of rank A. This is interesting. He still combined only the weaker creatures. Inspired and encouraged by Yuri, he plans to start as soon as the limit of creation is restored. But it does not have time. An uninvited guest appears in the dungeon. It's Marie. It is shocked. The meeting with it changes the atmosphere completely. Another moment ago, everything was about synthesis. Now everything turned through a sudden meeting. Cheyenne recognizes Marie from afar and rapidly descends the stairs to see. Marie also recognizes her. With relief she runs towards. Zion asks excited, "Where are others?" Cheyenne reports the terrible truth. All, Randall, Plain, Evan, and Barack are dead. Marie does not believe heard. She repeats it aloud, stunned by the news. Marie recalls that their group went to explore a new dungeon near Altrees, but instead was in the tragedy. The month has passed, but still no one knows what really. She explains that she did not survive because of luck. Although some doubt, she insists. The monsters acted strange, as if someone were controlling them, as if they were predicting every step. Despite the power of the detachment, everyone was killed. Marie is convinced that she remained alive because someone deliberately gave her to escape. Her life was not accidental. She recalls that it started a month ago when the dungeon appeared. The monsters acted in harmony, as if by someone's will. And this place was definitely not a regular maze. Finally, she apologizes to Cheyenne, recognizing the pain of the loss, but asks to accept the harsh truth. At this time, someone is watching Marie through the magic artifact. One of those present asks why she is there. Someone recognizes her. It's a healer from their old team. He is amazed and suspects that her appearance here is not a coincidence. Marie, wandering the dungeons in loneliness, chokes and calls the river. She believes that he is here. She screams. He asks him to appear if he sees her. And in silence something falls nearby, increasing the tension. She is going with the spirit and requires that the one who hid appears. But it appears in front of her. A huge monster is a massive figure that inspires horror. Meanwhile, the year is watching everything from afar and says he wants to talk to her. His satellite is amazed at such a decision. But the monster acts aggressively, sharply grabs Marie, tearing all the chances of a calm dialogue. Then he recedes, leaving Marie on the ground. She trembles, in a state of shock. It is confused. She looks around, trying to understand where she and what happened. She is carefully observed by the mysterious figure. Finally, a year before Marie, a winged creature next to him. He is welcome calmly, they say. They have not been seen for a long time. She recognizes him right away, in her eyes, both surprise and confidence. She said she knew. That's all his business. The year asks where she learned from. Marie explains that she studied the structures of the dungeons at the academy, and quickly understood, the girl with him, the spirit of prison. The dungeon appeared immediately after the year left the group, and the idea of leaving someone in alive is his style. The year was trying to justify. She thought she escaped herself. But Marie breaks him angrily. Don't pretend to be a fool. She asks directly, does he understand what he does? Among the tension, she remembers the past. The day when it was first introduced to the team as a new healer. Then she was embarrassed, but politely promised to try. And the year and others sincerely accepted it. Now this memory contrasts with who he became. She remembers how well she was taken into the team at the beginning. Then everyone rejoiced that the healer appeared. They had previously covered each other with great difficulty. The year smiled warmly and introduced as the year of Elrod. Marie Shea responded with a handshake, trying not to show excitement. The group then moved in the dungeon of rank B and suspected that the next floor was the boss's room. Everyone was tense. The year proposes to pause until the monsters have noticed their presence. Meanwhile, he reproaches Alan for reckless actions and then orders Marie to prepare the gold potion. She, surprised, immediately performs, demonstrating determination and devotion. The team recognizes Marie's value in this mission. One of the fighters notes that it became easier to keep the pace. Meanwhile, the year is calm. He does not need to worry about treatment. But Alan grunts, they say. This researcher is again waiting for instructions. Although everyone relied on the river potion to strengthen attributes and buffs, Marie only listens silently. And despite its serious look, he realizes it is better to be useful than superfluous. Marie timidly approaches the river and asks for permission to talk. She is officially addressing, but the year smiles and asks to call it just a river. She asks, worried about everything is fine with him, because Alan and Victor are often too harsh. The year lightly says that everything is normal and tries to reassure her with a friendly smile. Marie shares her doubt. She confesses that she is afraid that she hinders the team because she does not know if she is doing well. The year is calm. You should not worry so, because it will only hurt. She is moved by his words. She smiles through anxiety and thanks. She sees in it the concern that does not leave her indifferent. And a year. He admits that his true interest is to work on research in a comfortable environment. He says, the more Marie works, the less load on him, and this allows you to read more. It sounds selfish, but confesses. He is satisfied with this state of affairs. Meanwhile, Marie passes his ready gold potion. Another task was accomplished. It helped the team again. Looking back, Marie understands. Although she wanted to support the river, he supported her. And it was a true manifestation of kindness. Lowering her eyes, she whispers, it is a real year, kind and caring. But her reflections interrupt the voice. The year says that he has not changed. He is still exploring. Even if the creation of monsters is simply a side effect. Marie, however, says she does not understand how he could become the enemy of mankind. In the midst of the dispute, there is a suspicion. Does the spirit of dungeon affect the river? Maybe it manipulates his feelings and anger to Alan. The spirit smiles ironically and denies any influence. The year confesses. He does not keep evil on Alan. He just wanted to have space for his own growth. And to some extent, it even helped Rykov find himself, a place where he really matters. But if you have to face ideological contradictions, it will fight to the end, even if his enemy is Alan. Marie, with tears in her eyes, confesses. She still wants to return the year, but he firmly replies, everything he does is only for himself, not for Marie, Alan, or someone else. Despite her feelings, he says that she is not so good that he gives way to her place for someone, and apologizes with a sad smile. The year is resting in silence when the spirit of dungeons comes nearby. She says, to make a girl cry is a hand, and a year with a cynical smile replies, too late to worry about it, after so many deaths. He fully accepted the dark side. The year solemnly states that he is now the owner of the dungeon, and he will do his best to protect this world, full of monsters that only serve him. Marie is silently watching through tears, feeling how far a year departed from who he was once. Yuri looks at their conversation with envy, though he tries to hide it. The year, noticing her behavior, asks if something is wrong. Yuri denies, but her appearance is disappointed. The year shrugged. Marie is just a former partner. He does not understand what she thinks. Yuri hints. If Marie came to look for him, he was close to him. But the year replies, Marie was always good with everyone. So he himself is not sure whether something special in this. To change the topic, he reports that his ability is activated at the end of the day. But he will need help with the creation of monsters of rank A. The process is much more complicated. The year confesses. Despite the contract with the spirit of the dungeon, he knows almost nothing about her. Yuri is also interested in his past and former connections. She says, even if the contract was in a hurry, it is not an excuse for not to know each other better. After the pause, she goes to philosophical reflections on relationships. He says that the couples often inflame first, then marry, and then frustration. The year is confused. Where did she get these thoughts? Yuri is justified. She has a common goal for a year, and to some extent depend on each other. The year smiles and says, then you should start getting to know your best right now. They exchange sincere views, and the monsters around quietly watch. Time to strengthen the connection is still enough. Yuri hugs the river firmly and admits, she behaved through jealousy. The year is gentle that all is well. Meanwhile, the monsters around respond indifferently, as if used to such drama. The year focuses on the next step, the synthesis of the monster of rank A. At the same time, there is a fierce battle elsewhere. One of the warriors panic. His ability is not activated. He does not understand. Did the condition forgot whether the technique failed? But Alan Cole appears with unwavering confidence. He calls himself a hero and challenges a call. He is ready to destroy the enemy. He proudly remembers his past. He was awarded the king himself, survived in 9 fatal situations, and has never been defeated. He is not afraid of death, and that's what he says, gave him a real insight. He watches others and sees how fear paralyzes them. He believes that it lifts it above all. He goes forward, invincible. In the heat of the battle, Alan explodes fury, crying that all around are ill. The brother tries to stop him, but he does not understand himself with anger. Among the chaos, something flies and with force embarrasses into the ground. Victor capitals, almost hurt, and asks, did you try to kill me? Despite the tension, Victor asks Alan to calm down. Yuri is trying to intervene, but Alan is rudely interrupting her. At this point, she reports that Marie disappeared. It shocks everyone. Alan pretends to be indifferent, but it is clear that it has affected him. He confesses that Marie never disappeared without warning. Yuri tries to explain why her presence is important, but some of the teams are waving. They say, there are other healers. And at this point, a mysterious man appears. With a sarcastic smile, he laughs. Who is in common sense on a sinking ship? He hints. The team of the problem, and everyone knows it. Alan annoys his boldness, but the man continues. With this mood, Alan will not be able to pass the SSS rank dungeon, not to mention the creation of a new team. And having achieved the hero, he adds, the same doubts and weaknesses he despised in others now live in him. Alan stands around the throne. He recalls that the title of hero is only for those who exceed the standard, but even this is not eternal. The king can deprive the title of any moment if the results are not striking. When an unexpected figure appears before Alan, he learns his situation is shaky. Reputation and status hang on the hair. Marie returns to the detachment after disappearance and explains that she got lost, collecting herbs. Some warm it warmly. But Alan remains cold. She says she just escaped responsibility for finding a replacement. Without unnecessary explanations, he orders everyone to prepare for a new mission. Meanwhile, Yer and Yuri continue to prepare for the synthesis of monsters of rank A, such as Mucus King and Arachne. The process is similar, but much more complicated. Since it takes more time, the Yer decides to expand the dungeon at the same time. Yuri watches with confidence. She believes that the Cyclop will cope with any gross force. She asks how the Yer joined the heroes. He tells, it all started with the prophecy of the fortune teller. She passed the village and said, if he turned to Alan Cole, he would have a chance to go down in history. Although it sounded naive, he believed a Yer, and it changed everything. He is thinking, it may have started with a groundless prophecy, but the desire to change fate and become an alchemist pushed him forward. Then Alan was proud, but not yet arrogant. Yuri was surprised that he took the river to the team, although he appeared from nowhere. While they are walking in the rank of S, the Yer thinks. Alan continued to develop even after achieving skill. During the mission, the team gets into a critical situation. Alan's abilities are not activated, and lack of coherence becomes obvious. One of the fighters proposes to retreat, but stubborn Alan refuses. He behaves aggressively, ignoring the warning. The atmosphere spoils. The team discusses the likelihood of collision with the dungeon. Someone is honest. They have no chance. Alan replies disdain, blaming others of cowardice and weakness of the spirit. The tension explodes. Fitz tries to warn about the risk, but in the end breaks and rushes to the enemy, ignoring everyone. It attacks on its own, but the enemy instantly corresponds to a series of rigid blows. Fitz is seriously injured, falls to the ground, group in shock. The monster goes on the offensive, and the whole team is frozen from unexpected cruelty. Something strange begins in the center of the field. Sounds, trembling, energy explosion. No one understands what is happening. The year with Yuri is observed without understanding the nature of this phenomenon. Meanwhile, Marion and Fitz are also amazed. One of the fighters is picking up from a Fitz, they say. Now he has a reason to leave. Alan is silent, but markedly impressed. Alan looks at the Fitz with contempt and says he will replace him immediately after returning. He is not concerned about the lost leg. For him, a Fitz is no longer a warrior. The ground under your feet cracks. Alan concludes that all this is a consequence of the physical and moral weakness of the Fitz. A mysterious woman emerges from the water, radiating a threatening aura. The year and his companion are stunned. Alan states in anger. He does not want to deal with failures like the river. The scene is interrupted by the explosion in the water. The new character appears spectacular and dramatic. The new girl looks around, surprised. Her face changes to a mysterious smile. The river's companion watches her with surprise, and then shocked. Another mysterious woman appeared in their den. The newborn synthesized girl behaves boldly, without shame in her eyes. The year is lost. Does not know how to respond to its human appearance. Although she understands that she is a creature created. After he has been quarreled, he tries to justify himself, and the girl is easily dressed with magic, striking all present. Her natural behavior and ability to dress on her own raise even more questions about her true nature. The amazed year begins to think about who this creature really is. He seems like the alchemist Rick Elrod and confesses that he created it. Hearing this, the girl looks at him and begins to doubt the very fact of her existence. It is not able to fully grasp its origin or purpose. In despair, the girl is immersed in an existential crisis, questioning not only herself, but also the reality around. She does not understand why she exists, where she is conscious and what she is. The year, noticing her reaction, understands. It is too unusual. Yuri explains that the monsters of the dungeon usually have neither personality nor consciousness. In despair, the girl rushes to the river with a direct question. She calls him the creator, God, and requires explanation. Why does it exist and what is its meaning? The river compresses the pressure. It cannot find a clear answer. The tension increases. Even Yuri is engaged in conversation, and the confusion is only deepening. Yuri proudly replies, she lives to serve the river and help to create a dungeon with him. The new girl listens silently without showing any emotions. Presses on the chest, reflecting on what he heard, and everyone is watching her reaction. Without explanation, she is annoyed and suddenly grabs Yuri for her clothes. This leads to an unexpected and uncomfortable scene. Yuri is in a hurry and with anxiety asks the river if he saw something. The year, in the sweat and the discounted, looks away and quickly denies, trying to escape from this situation. Jealous, Yuri began to quarrel, hinting that he was too happy about the first night. The argument is gaining momentum, and she even threatens to undress to prove her correctness. Meanwhile, the newly created girl is watching this cold and straight. She reminds that he still does not know who she is and where she is. The contrast between the comic absurd and the deep crisis only exacerbates tension. The year begins to talk about his past. He was an ordinary alchemist without target until he got here. Here he met Yuri, began to create monsters, and with her founded a dungeon. It was then that he realized. He found his place in the world and opened his true calling. The year extends her hand to a new girl with a warm smile, promising that she will find herself over time. In the meantime, this dungeon will become her home. The girl accepts his gesture and calls him a father, as a sign of respect for the one who created it. She then addresses Yuri. She asks if she could call her mother, because she also participated in the creation. The reaction is a wave of surprise and awkwardness, but the girl insists. She just wants to be honest and recognize both of her creators. From now on, she calls Rika and Yuri her parents. She asks her to have a decent and special name. Yuri is delighted with this family idea and praises his daughter for wisdom. A year, a little embarrassed, confesses, has long come up with a name for her. He solemnly calls a new girl, Cruz. The year explains that the name Cruz is inspired by the homunculus from ancient alchemical treatises. Yuri praises the choice, and Cruz reiterates the name, thinking about the true essence of alchemy, the knowledge of life, and the challenge of the gods. While the year explains the meaning of the name, Cruz interrupts it, noticing something strange in the magical sphere. The image attracts the attention of all. Cruz seriously asks if they're really indifferent to what is shown there. The screen appears on the screen cut-off, shaped hands in shackles, a harbinger of danger. The year understands that the invaders have been able to defeat the monster of rank A. It is striking how rumors of their dungeon spread. Yuri reports that enemies are moving through a new section of the dungeon, where the traps have not yet been installed properly. When evaluating the situation, the year decides to call back from another zone and seeks a means of communication. Cruz unexpectedly asks whether she should kill the overgrowths, which is stunned by both the river and Yuri with her cold straightness. Having analyzed the enemy, she confidently says that she will be able to cope on his own, and with determination she rushes to meet the enemies. Year and Yuri are concerned about her eyes, not sure whether she can cope on her own. Meanwhile, enemies scornfully evaluate its baby's appearance, although one of them warns, should not be underestimated. Its first blow proves it. Cruz lightly destroys one enemy with an accurate blow. The rest remain in shock. With cold confidence in her eyes, she examines the opponents and sarcastically points out that they are even weaker than it seemed. In the gorgeous hall, two aristocrats discuss the hero, criticizing his lack of dedication. One of them is crazy, the apple. The other recalls that the detachment has been defeated 7 times a month, trying to conquer the dungeon. The reputation of the hero falls rapidly. One of the nobles invites him to give him some more money, fearing the pressure of the Senate and the opportunity that other states take advantage of their weakness. Despite his criticism, they recognize the past merit of the hero. As a result, they decide to give him the last chance to prove his value. A new rapidly growing dungeon has emerged near the capital, which has already destroyed a careless group of adventurers. It is rumored that the monsters there are much stronger than indicating the level. This place is considered an ideal test for the true power of the hero. The dungeon begins to tremble, signaling the beginning of a dangerous event. Meanwhile, a new truth is opened. In fact, Cruz is not just a creature created, but a true vampire labor, born as a vampire. Its strength is classified as SS rang outside the usual. The river shocks this awareness. He created a creature of this level. Together with Yuri, they understand that from Cruz on their side, they can challenge the hero himself. Smiling proudly, the girl calls the river Dad, and a new hope appears in the group. Cruz demonstrates its strength. With cold indifference, it destroys opponents one by one. Her movements are rapid, accurate, and merciless. In seconds, all enemies lie unconscious. The year, looking from afar, is amazed. The most powerful weapons are now with them. The group now lives in a comfortable and well-equipped base. With the help of Cruz and rapid accumulation of resources, this place has become ideal for life. Exploring new rooms, the main character is satisfied with the convenience and quality of the arrangement. He is especially pleased with access to the tools he only dreamed of when he was part of the old Allen group. Here he sees a new beginning, full of opportunities. The hero is concerned about the increase in the level of invaders. He confesses that he used dungeons for his own projects, but only excess. The Elfian notes that it will be easy to destroy the enemies from the Cruz on the side. However, this only exacerbates his anxiety. Excessive Cruz dependence can be dangerous. Although her strength is so great that even the characters would not withstand confrontation, he still doubts, realizing the risks. Cruz, glowing pride, states that many invaders have won from the moment of birth. The hero assures that he never forced her to fight, because she has always expressed a desire to participate in missions. Complete confidence, Cruz says that enemies for her are like a game, and expresses a desire to meet a real challenge. The elfish watches thoughtfully. She begins to doubt whether she does not exaggerate too much. Meanwhile, a new character, Albert Rito, appears. He enthusiastically seems to say that he was honored to be personally invited by Alan. It is rumored that Albert is the best Marcos detachment fighter. Meanwhile, the mysterious figure with a threatening look is watching them, hinting at the danger. The Elfian is kept calm, but it is worried. The group meets Albert with distrust. Some doubt how much it will last, hinting at the ligaments. One ridicules the results of the group, causing tension. Albert tries to discharge the situation, saying that it will bring a new energy to the team. But one of the fighters cannot stand and breaks his language. The atmosphere in the detachment is harsh. Alan emphasizes that actions are valued here, not words. Everyone has to prove their power in battle. They announce that in the morning, a new dungeon, and everyone should be in the best shape. The group has cold determination, without a place for jokes or weakness. A signal of a new invasion is entered. The hero retains peace, noting that this has already happened. Cruz, full determination, accepts a mission with excitement and self-confidence. The elfish watches magic on the route of enemies. Although she tries not to worry, an alarming anticipation awakens in her soul. The invaders move through the dungeons, wary of unnatural silence. One warns of traps and everyone goes into alert. During the analysis of the area, one of them asks for a golden tincture, showing caution. Despite the simplicity of traps, the situation causes tension. They conclude that the monsters have become smaller, and the traps are more. This indicates the adaptation of the dungeon to the threat. Cruz, with a sadistic smile and confidence, intercepts enemies. Noticing 5 opponents, she instantly attacks and knocks one of them. With a crazy glitter in her eyes, she warns. Before killing everyone, she wants to have a little fun. Her mission is not only protection, but also pleasure. During the fight, one enemy throws a bottle of potion into the Cruz, taking advantage of the moment. The bottle explodes a bright flash, temporarily dazzling everyone. Cruz, stunned by glitter, is annoyed. Her look becomes fierce. She will not forgive this trick. The voltage in battle increases. The invaders carry out a series of coordinated attacks. One of them lifts the wall of the earth at a frantic speed, throwing the ally Cruz far back. Angry in obstacles, she tries to counter, but falls into a trap, an underground ambush. The battle comes out of control. Despite the injury and the shock, the Cruz does not seem. But as soon as she prepares for a jerk, she gets into a new trap with flying creatures. She is suddenly frozen. After the smoke explosion, the stars of the Cruz disappeared. The invaders are embarrassed. Does she run away or deliberately go into traps? With his eyes crying, Cruz acknowledges that he sees nothing. One enemy guesses. She herself is trapped. But not the invaders stopped her, but the traps of the dungeon himself. Seeing this, enemies decide to attack immediately. The lord of the dungeon panics. Cruz does not restrain the enemies, and they can reach his room. The situation is getting worse. The hero confesses that he expanded the dungeon, added traps and roots only for the retention of the enemy, but this is not enough, and in silence he understands. He relied too on Cruz, and forgot about the most important thing, a safe way to escape. The voltage increases, the steps are heard, there is almost no time left. The enemies understand that Cruz was blinded through the trap. They are boldly moving forward, convinced that she will not see them from afar. The group is moving harmoniously. But suddenly a loud roar that fills the corridor. Something giant is approaching. A powerful cyclop is released against the invaders. One ally believes in his victory, but the Lord has doubts. They underestimated the enemies. The Lord warns, to leave the cyclop itself is suicide. Cyclops enters the battle, but it is immediately surrounded and attacked. It quickly loses its advantage. The sounds of the destruction are heard around. The Cyclops fiercely resists. The enemies were well prepared. One of them notes, the creature is stronger than it seemed, but thanks to the golden tincture, their strength has increased. They are sure they carry out a coordinated attack, which ends with an explosion simply in the Cyclop. A powerful joint attack changes the course of battle. The Cyclop falls with a deaf hum, severely injured and too weak to continue the fight. Despite the wounds, the enemies are convinced, all alive. The leader acknowledges that the battle was difficult, but they withstood. The path is open. The group moves on. The defenders are silently watching the fall of the giant. But suddenly, even blind, Cruz returns to battle, striking enemies with his endurance. Enemies still believe that they have an advantage and try to attack how it restores your eyesight. One rushes forward, and is wrong. The next moment, the explosive blow stops the attack and shocks everyone. Cruz, still blind, begins to sniff to the air. It does not please the stench, but it recognizes it. She smelled the invasion. Her words are shocking the group, especially Marco, who understands. She beats for sure. Relying only on the sense of smell, the Cruz rushes forward, focusing on the smell of blood. Her blow is unmistakable. One enemy falls instantly. The rest are stunned. She does not need vision to be deadly. Marco realizes. They underestimated it. Cruz, although in a disadvantage, does not stop. After the battle, she approaches the wounded but living Cyclop, recognizing his strength. She sincerely thanks him for his help in battle. The elfish with relief notices that the Cyclop is whole. Cruz acknowledges that she has underestimated him. Now she respects his strength. In the air, there is a mutual respect among the defenders of the dungeon. The Lord recognizes mistakes. He relied too on others and did not trust his own decision. Yuri reassures him. Trusting others is normal, especially when you are responsible for everyone's life. The Lord is moved by this support. He realized that it was time to act alone, not only for himself, but to protect everyone who is nearby. Albert in despair raced the dark corridors of the dungeon. Seeing that one of the members of the group was rushed forward, he was panic. He flew into a group of coca-trees, poisonous monsters that even a newcomer would not be at risk of failing. The situation has become catastrophic. Albert wildly called comrades, wandering unanswered. But unexpectedly, he was surrounded by giant coca-trees. He, frightened and without protection, understood as a trap. and it is too late to run. Alan told others that he saw those monsters moving in the same direction where Albert disappeared. He rarely worked, but quickly understood. It is only a distracting maneuver. Someone suggested that Albert will delay them and the rest will go on. This proposal stunned Rato. He did not believe that they were seriously considering betrayal. Suddenly Matilda grabbed her heart and began to wheeze, throwing the group in panic. Without realizing what is happening, she was immediately examined. Someone recognized the symptoms. She inhaled the coquetry poison. If you do nothing, it will die in 6 hours. The tension has increased. The poison is classified as a level S is superfluous. There is no antidote. Even Marie's magic is powerless. Frustration was scratching. One of them partially accused Alan. His hasty actions drawn everyone into this mess. But no one dared to throw him direct reproach. Disputes began. Someone mentioned the river and the fits. They could be avoided. Rito blamed himself, looking for a mistake. Marie suggested that Matilda immediately return to the city. Rescuing life has become the main one. She was outraged against the plan to leave Albert. Now is not the time for quarrels. A person went death. And she remembered the words of Dorma, appealing to their conscience. Her determination and pain were obvious. He did not stand it. He agreed with a serious face. It is no longer possible to delay. He took command of himself and ordered to retreat. Alan, though reluctant, agreed. Marie thanked Victor for his support, and he calmly accepted it. United, everyone was preparing for urgent departure. Despite all the attempts, tinctures, magic, care, Matilda did not survive. 2 days she died. The antidote was found, but too late. When Alan returned, he asked her, and heard the painful truth. She did not survive. These words struck him, and silence dropped on everyone. Matilda's death was the last drop for Marie. She stated that she would no longer stay in this group. The losses of the river and the fits were already unbearable. Victor tried to reassure her, but Alan walked silently. She screamed in Marie's tears. Did the heart remain in it if he could be so cold? Alan, absorbed in anger and guilt, Alan admitted. He failed as a leader, but already busy with the search for new members. After numerous refusals and neglect by other adventurers, he began to doubt. Perhaps his reputation was finally destroyed. In Alan's head, thoughts about Marie. How did she dare to challenge him? In his eyes, she was always just a healer. The insult only increased. It was fierce. He exploded. Feeling undervalued, Alan destroyed everything that had happened at his hand and rushed away the streets. On the way, he faced a mysterious man accompanied by a dark figure. Without hesitation, Alan came with a call. But the stranger was calmly introduced, Alfred Blight. But Alan discussed him to take away, not wanting to hear a single word. In the air, voltage has hanged. But even in the face of the hostility, Alfred retained the immobility. He stated that he brought the letter from the king himself. Alan froze. The face changed instantly. Stunned, he whispered, "King?" Everything around was filled with anxious seriousness. Reading the letter aloud, Alan first felt pride. His past exploits were mentioned there. But there was a warning. His recent defeats have exceeded the permissible limits. The Senate considers the issue of deprivation of his title of hero. Alan did not restrain shock and indignation, but the chance of redemption was still. If he manages to conquer the dungeon again, the status will remain. Surprised by such simplicity, Alan quickly realized everything is not so easy. After all, the first goal is the same dungeon where he was defeated before. The voltage turned. Marie began to worry, feeling something wrong. Meanwhile, the lord of the dungeon, who has been planned over the next steps, focused on the creation of new creatures and thoughtful strategy. Feeling the weight of the decisions, he sought the advice of Yuri, recognizing her experience. But she was surprised, but listened carefully. She was moved by such trust. She promised to help everyone she could, and felt proud. The master smiled back. Together, they began to check the condition of the dungeon, starting a new phase of changes and improvements. Analyzing the structure, Yuri proposed to divide the dungeon into floors, to complicate the passage. She also advised to apply reinforcement for monsters, depending on the environment. The master agreed and started the change. The conversation went into the technical plane. One floor is turned into a thick forest. The master was amazed, and Yuri explained, "This is a new type of terrain that will complicate the path of enemies and allow you to place stronger creatures." After that, they checked the cost of resources. Everything went according to the plan. Yuri reported that the victory over the adventurers of the dungeon received 25,000 DP, raising the rank to E36 200 points, even after the cost of changes and expansion. From now on, the construction of DP generation buildings has become available. The idea has captured the whole team. Meanwhile, the newly created girl decided to be useful, though she did not know the alchemy or management. She focused on what she knew best: training. With passion, she began to teach monsters to make them stronger. The master supported them with a smile, only asked not to get exhausted. He wondered. Attempts to master the alchemy and the management of the dungeons seemed to be created for him. He remembers the magician from his hometown. He saw in him the force and advised to find a special person to achieve a great goal. Now, far from Alan, stepping on his own way, he thinks, will he ever achieve something really significant? Alan is still confident in his own strength, rejects the very idea of the loss of the title of the hero. He believes that he is still able to prove his greatness. Albert tries to intervene, stating that the future of the country should be entrusted to him. But Alfred emphasizes that the case goes far beyond Alan's personal ambitions. Nevertheless, Alan is stubborn on his own, will not allow intervention, even if they are respected. Stalin is surprised to see a stranger in a hood who praises his determination but reminds, youth requires flexibility. When a man removes the hood, he remembers the river, a guy whom Alan once went on a hike, and directly asks about his fate. The doubts were obvious. There was no news about the river, and this raises suspicion. Alan recognizes a stranger. He is still alive. He ironically over the wrinkled look of Alan, although he looks like always, like a dead man. Marie is puzzled. She first sees this man. Victor realizes that his appearance is increasingly suspicious. Albert Grace reveals himself, a mysterious alchemist, an advisor to the king who served as his grandfather of the current monarch. Although the title is often traveling in search of young talents, it always appears in critical moments. Marie is interested in why Alan was kept in the group, despite their enmity. Victor confesses, it was not only because of the lack of people. The year got into the group only because of the direct request of Albert. Even if Alan considered him worthless, he was left only to preserve the reputation of Grace. He had too much influence to contradict him. And although it seemed rumors, the events proved the opposite. In the end, even Albert himself cannot remember the guy's name. In response, Alan explodes with an angry cry. He states that the river has already expelled from the group. He says no matter how much he supports him, he has not benefited any benefit. Victor and others agree. Alan criticizes the very concept of potential. They say, to wait in vain. For him, the year was only a burden. Albert reacts with a smile without losing rest, laughing at Alan's impatience. He recognizes, sometimes it really invests too much in hope, but such a path of alchemists, to observe, to analyze, to fit into the future. And at the end he clearly states, patience is the key to everything. Alan does not find what to dispute. At this point, a warrior appears and attacks, accusing Alan of impulsiveness. He recognizes the attacker stunningly. Robert is watching cold. He acknowledges that despair is a common feature of adventurers, and at the same time condemns Alan's recklessness. Albert supports. A true character has to distinguish between courage and stupidity. Meanwhile, the year works in the laboratory. Yuri is curious with interest, and he explains. Create something new that is not in the catalog, using the materials collected. The team, meanwhile, discusses the final stage of the conquest of the dungeon. Forces and resources on the verge. The year asks, what would they do in their place? Yuri hesitates, and then he answers himself. Despite all the complexity, the best solution would be to retreat. After all, the adventure makes sense only when everyone remains alive, although not everyone understands it. He understands the cruel truth. After the retreat of the dungeon will change, and all the collected data will become useless. The name of Vanjir M. Shimun comes in memory. The adventures of Jerem M. These travelers were not allies. Sabotage and struggle for glory is a common thing, and while they are resting, someone else can pick up the whole victory for themselves. The choice is even more difficult. The year recognizes that adventurers are often forced to risk and move on, even despite a deadly threat. Yuri is afraid of the consequences and remembers previous alarming signs. She remembers, even a victory can have a high price. Irreversible injuries, losses of comrades. But the year has a trump card in a sleeve, an ally who is able to change the course of the game. It gets a gold potion, the same as other adventurers used when invading this dungeon. Air immediately recognizes the fluid and suspiciously asks for his intentions. The year smiles in a mysterious year. He has a clear plan, but he is in no hurry to reveal it. It decides to use the potion to cure the Cyclop, and then he asks Cruz to take him seriously with him only once. The girl hesitates only a moment, but he agrees, interested in an unusual experiment. Cruz accepts the call, warning that he can accidentally kill the Cyclop if the battle becomes fierce. The year remains calm and challenges. The Cyclop will fight under the effect of potion, and this will be a disadvantage. Cruz is not sure whether it really helps. But despite doubt, she prepares for battle, saying that she only obeys her father's order. Yuri with anxiety is watching everything, not sure whether the idea is really working. The Cyclops sweats nervously. Cruz promises to finish everything quickly and painlessly. The Year smiles and asks Yuri to watch closely. Now he will show the true power of the potion. Cruz is strongly attacked, however. Everything is not planned. Instead of a slight victory, she is amazed. The Cyclops is incredibly strengthened. She barely responds to her strokes. Cruz feels something strange in the body. The Cyclops is frightened and confused. Even cured, he begins to get exhausted. Cruz ruthlessly and accurately attacks, keeping control over the battle. She notices, despite the regeneration, the body of the Cyclops is tired. Using her endurance, the girl sets the initiative and checks the boundaries of the potion force. Preparing for the final blow, Cruz is concentrated. Yuri is worried if she will kill the monster, but the teacher asks just to look. Even when in a depressed state, the Cyclops takes an inevitable defeat with dignity. Cruz confidently breaks into a jump for a decisive blow, ready to finish the fight coldly. But it is at this point that unexpected. The weakened monster explodes with force and speed, goes into a counterattack and equals strength with the rival. Cruz stunned. The Cyclops moves at the same speed as it. The victory seemed to be near. But the battle suddenly turns into an equal confrontation. The annoyed Cruz goes on the attack again, but the teacher stops both. He announces the experiment succeeded. After all, the goal was not to victory, but to test the effect of potion. Cruz wants to continue, but he assures that the result is already obvious. The Cyclops, though barely standing, accepts the defeat of peace. The master explains. The goal was to see how he would resist a much stronger opponent. It reveals the potion is activated at critical moments, sharply enhancing all the abilities of the carrier. Its manufacture is difficult, but the effect is stunning. From the time of its creation, the level of survival among adventurers has increased by 40%. This potion is created to save in hopelessness. The master decides that all monsters in the dungeons will be equipped with gold potions. Although adventurers have a strategy and teamwork, monsters have an advantage in size and knowledge. If they are hardy, it will be much more difficult to win. On the basis of the experiment with the Cyclops, it becomes clear. Even medium-level adventurers will hardly move forward. The hero is aware that it is a dungeon, a true work of an alchemist with strategic thinking and a flexible combat system. To emphasize the uniqueness of the creation, it offers the name Dungeons of the Alchemist, which shocks Yuri. It turns out that it still has no name. After the fine manipulation of Albert, Alan agrees to a new expedition. The old master skillfully touched his pride, forcing him to believe that he made the decision on his own. Now that the team is collected, he is ordered to cooperate with new members, though he still does not trust anyone. Alan gets acquainted with newcomers. The first is the Mage, Mag of rank A, which is poured over excessive compliments. The second is Aaron Zigger, also the rank of rank A, much more restrained and straightforward. They will support the mission in the dungeon. But the cold reception of Alan immediately creates tension in the command. Last newcomer, Tony Richards. He already knows Alan, and his greetings are mixed. The delight of a common mission and disappointment because of Alan's indifference. The lack of harmony in the team is obvious. Tony openly criticizes Alan, saying that the hero should be a symbol of hope. And Alan, accepting outside help, disgraced this ideal. He remembers how he lost to him in the past, but Alan's current state is disappointed. He declares with bitterness, "You fall." The tension is interrupted by the newly arrived. Tony proudly seems like a candidate for the heroes of the rank S, lifting the sword and swearing to accept the heroic burden. Alan, annoyed, replies, "The one who is stuck in the rank S has no right to judge me." Their dispute is exacerbated. It becomes apparent. It is true rivalry. The old advisor interferes, noting that another person has to join. Tony adds that she will soon arrive. The scene is carried a few hours ago. Something important is being prepared that can change everything. Meanwhile, Yuri and the Master are watching through the magical sphere. The dungeon has penetrated unknown, but most striking, his speed is so crazy that even the magic system does not have time to track it. It easily demolishes the guards, as if they are nothing more than toys. The mysterious offender finally opens his face, a young man named Elias Clement, assassin rank A. Despite the child's appearance, he is confident in himself and clearly experienced. The Master was amazed. He did not expect such a young guy to be so dangerous. Monsters are completely powerless against its speed. Even the advantage of quantity does not help. Elias is dancing among the enemies, as if he is playing, laughing in the middle of chaos. His strength and agility go beyond the ordinary. No standard tactics work here. The young man easily evades all attacks. Monsters try to hit, but their blows do not even approach. The master is embarrassed. He does not understand how the enemy can completely ignore the counterattack. Not only does Lias fast, but also implies every movement of the enemy with superhuman accuracy. He coldly evaluates the monsters and concludes that they do not impress. After evaluating the situation, he decides that he saw enough and goes. Jumps out the window and disappears, leaving others shocked. At the time, one of the fighters recognizes that a meeting with this enemy is equivalent to suicide. Nearby stands a girl, indignant in his words. But he just smiles, taking his own weakness without shame. Watching the opponent, the group notices. He avoids direct battle, but skillfully disrupts all their strategies. They suspect the presence of special ability. One of them says, even if everyone came into battle, the chance of victory would be foggy. And the girl adds, the greatest defeat is not the battle, but the fact that they revealed their secret card. Meanwhile, the attacker himself makes it clear that his goal was not an attack, but an intelligence. The group concludes, if such masters start attacking regularly, the structure of the dungeon will have to be fully viewed. It is decided. Time to start planning from scratch. They gather around the table with a dungeon. Although they did not reach the lower levels, they share the data obtained. One praises effort, the other asks why the previous intelligence was needed. The leader is hesitant, but promises to explain. The girl says, though there are more complex dungeons, it is the most mysterious. He does not understand his logic. It, as a creature at the stage of development, is full of mistakes and surprises, and that is his danger. Everyone agrees. It resembles an experimental platform that has already caused many deaths and rumors. The leader believes that the master of the dungeon plays his own game, and as soon as the real invasion begins, it will change everything. What they have learned now will only be a benchmark. The task was serious. Their goal is not to storm, but to obtain valuable information, and most importantly, to understand the character of the owner of this place. If they know how he thinks, they will be able to predict changes even in chaos. One of the participants insists that the decision to attack the team, not someone for them. Another believes that there is not enough research. Priority should be given to other dungeons. The first agrees, but he emphasizes he does not want to be excluded from decision-making. He accepts shadow intelligence but demands to report it before acting. The hero reminds that he is the official leader of the group so far, and has a royal order. It irritates, requires more respect and care. Another accepts the remark, promising to keep it in your head. Everyone is going. Someone starts a new phase, signaling readiness. The older man opens the meeting on the first assault. One of the audience proposes to discuss everything calmly. In response, everyone demonstrates confidence. The silent girl barely holds her tears. She is overwhelmed by the relief from the unity of the team. But she complains that in the dungeon for several days, no movement. Meanwhile, they discuss. The one who is responsible for everything, for the third day, does not leave the room. It is brought to him, but there are no explanations. It begins to disturb the residents, but the man is fully immersed in the planning and modification of traps. And the girl no longer stands boredom and begins to lose patience. Angry, she screams that she will go crazy if nothing changes. Without listening to the prohibitions, he decides to pull his father out of the room strongly. But breaking into the room, he finds him unconscious at the table, among the flasks, plates, and papers. In panic, she is zooming, believing that her father died, lifting a wave of panic. The man slowly becomes aware and asks where he is. Girls overflowing with emotions rush to him. One of them jumps straight at him, striking with unexpected tenderness after waking up. They begin to weld it for not resting for 3 days and lived only in homemade potions. It is worried that he is an ordinary person. Without food will not last long. They warn that if it breaks, everything will fall apart. At the end, they are sincerely asked to take care of themselves. One reminds that time to donate blood for her. The father admits that he has forgotten about it. The other is indignant. To take blood from the hungry absurd. They agree. First feed, then everything else. The master, exhausted, does not understand whether they care about it or simply use as a source of food. The girls decide to cook something delicious, fully giving this mission. He thanks and promises to rest by that time, trusting them. But as soon as it remains alone, it begins to doubt whether they are able to cook at all. Meanwhile, one of them collects different ingredients and convenes a whole command of monsters. She is sure that something will work out with such reinforcement. However, the daughter asks, what exactly are they going to cook? Obviously, enthusiasm was not accompanied by a plan. While choosing a dish, the girl realizes she does not even know what people eat. She remembers a conversation with her father. where he compared alchemy to cooking. Like mixing the ingredients, you create something new. But it suggests her. Maybe his father did not know about food. Suddenly it illuminates. If cooking is similar to alchemy, then you can use alchemical tools. Inspired, she proclaims, with the right equipment and a little creativity, they will work out. Others silently listen, stunned by such a bold idea. But the enthusiast supports it. It sounds logical. If potions affect the body, then food can be created in the same way. Alchemy should work, even if none of them know how to do it. But until it is poisonous, why not? Without a clear recipe, it gives simple instructions. Cut, mix, cook. He confidently calls on everyone to simply imitate her. I am convinced that this is enough. A chaotic culinary session begins. Together with the monsters, they spell in the kitchen. While the dish is preparing, one of the girls caps. If so goes on, then their father's stomach will die before he will taste food. They remember that normal cooking needs half a day, so they decide to accelerate everything with a very non-standard method. They cause the evaporate to use a powerful fire and accelerate the cooking in a matter of minutes. The crazy flow of flames erupts. The flame beats right into the cauldron. Girls are delighted to watch that such heat will help. But joy changes to horror when they see what is happening inside. The contents of the boiler evaporates completely. One of the girls confesses that she has added a potion, but the couple was surprisingly influenced. Correcting the situation, the monster proposes to add salt, because it is useful. The other clarifies, large salt? But the greatest of them ignores everything and pours all the salt at once without restraining. Despite the normal appearance of the dish, the main problem is its taste. The girl asks Goblin to taste. He reluctantly agrees, but instantly spits with a grimace of horror. The reaction of the girls, they themselves were waiting for the catastrophe. The end result is a complete failure. One of the monsters loses consciousness after tasting. And yet the girl insists on a new attempt, because alchemy is constant experiments. Explosions and chaos in the kitchen are ongoing, and helpers in despair. There will soon be no subjects for this food. After all the fuss and explosions, there are only debris and tired bodies. But the man smiles sincerely and thanks them for their efforts. He understands their sincerity, and that is what he moves him. The girls also smile, happy, who were able to convey their care. Looking at the mess, a man with a sad smile asks to remove everything. The girls agree in silence. Later, the group gathers at the table, which is created by a variety of dishes. The cook explains that he has prepared dishes with a focus for taste and texture, because Yuri, as a spirit, does not need food. For crew members, he chose fried meat, and as a supplement, a little blood collected in advance. The protagonist tells that he once prepared at Allen parties, and saw a similarity between alchemy and cooking. He decides to gather everyone in a common meal, reminding, despite all the differences, they fight side by side. At the table, a variety of creatures that enjoy food and the moment of unity. The group begins to discuss the situation, the most worried of the invasion of the elite group that has recently sent Assassin. Although they managed to prevent deep advancement, the enemy gathered important information about monsters and their location. They now have no resources to completely replace the creatures of the front line. And even during the meal, the hero states with confidence that they will cope with enemies without problems. However, it is warned of the probable division of enemies. Part will restrain the crew, and the rest will move into the depths. This means defeat. The protagonist emphasizes that we must prepare for stronger enemies, because to rely only on the power of Cruz is not enough. The group is looking for new strategies. With the expansion of the dungeon, the crew does not have time to cover everything. They propose to increase the maze even more, deplete enemies during the study, and then give the monsters the final blow. But the hasty expansion of the dungeon is a waste of resources, because against strong enemies it will not give the desired effect. The group comes to the conclusion, there is a real tank in the defense of the dungeon. You need a monster that is able to restrain the pressure, blocking enemies physically, not necessarily strong, but extremely durable. It is planned to be placed at deep levels to hold the invasion, and crew destroys altogether. The protagonist remembers his first weapon and decides there will be a merger, a key part of his plan. The dungeon appears a formidable monster that proclaims its loyalty. A new stage of defense begins. The detachment of adventurers is easily advanced to the level of level A, confidently and outdoors. One states that he could handle himself. Another notes, Tony did not even get the sword. That's so not serious for them. They joke that the mission is simple, because they were only summoned as reinforcements. One of them did not have time to get weapons. Nevertheless, they recognize the strategy acts as an insurance option. The analyst from the group decides to watch carefully, although the leader asks not to knock down the total pace. After the mission, adventurers gather again. One praises the coordinated work of the team. Another reports that he was looking for information in the Guild of Thieves. This source is considered the most reliable in the capital. The atmosphere remains relaxed, though provocative, and everyone feels that they have learned something important. The guild provided valuable testimonies from those who survived in the dungeon. And although there are doubts about the cost of royal money, the informant assures, he paid things, not coins. After that, others make his decision without objections. Among them is an old man, relaxed and calm, which causes irritation. He states that he has already done his work and now here for the sake of pleasure. The woman calls him a burden and asks to return to the palace. It is indifferent to criticism. The old man says he does not care, or others will follow orders. He is confident and independent. He just wants to see how the hero of the new era will appear. In response, he will be teased, they say. Let him watch until he becomes an old insanity. With a smile, the old man takes a joke, clearly making it clear. He will really simply watch. The atmosphere becomes tense, but restrained. All silently follow the situation. The protagonist holds a new merger, this time with the use of Class A monster as a basis. Although creatures are less, it puts on quality, observing the process of silence. He is tormented by the question, will this creation be a blessing or curse? The voltage increases with every minute of the ritual. A giant, a real dragon, emerges from a burning boiler. His presence instantly strikes everyone. One of the adventurers is amazed. It is a real dragon, creating a different level. The group is going for a meeting to discuss further actions. They decide. After the next dungeon, a serious test will come. From previous hikes, they better understand each other and are able to cover the weaknesses. One of the members of the detachment confirms. Information is enough to move forward safely, hero. He clearly states that he does not need a compartment. The main thing, that no one will interfere with him. Although his position is cold, a friend recognizes that this allows the hero to fully reveal his potential. And for the whole group, it is the most effective way. Another member states that his goal is not to control Alan, but simply not to stand in his way. He recognizes that people are not captivated by the ability of leadership, but the power of Alan, who conquers everything. Therefore, he is the perfect warrior, but not necessarily the leader. During the conversation, Mary is asked why she joined the team, but she does not have time. She is urgently called for help. In the full battle of the wounded, the ally shooks treatment, interrupting the moment of reflection and forcing them to act. Victor is seriously injured and begins to lose consciousness. Mary tries to help and hesitates what attracts the warrior with a bandage. He coldly reproaches her. Mary apologizes and the other ally also criticizes her uncertainty. Everyone demonstrates irritation with fluctuations. She is reminded that if she is weak, it is easy to replace. She tries to explain that she has joined as a magicist, but she stops again, apologizes, ashamed. The warrior mocks her former doubts and emphasizes, after all, she has no right not to know why here. Finally, Mary opens the true reason. She wants to support one person. She talks about a mysterious man, outside the cold, but whom she watches carefully. Although he is not eloquent and not a leader, she wants to be near and give him her support. One of the members of the group calls this devotion true faith. The bandage warrior agrees. She will do everything to be recognized as a hero. And he confidently states, the whole group feels the same. Mary, Lids, and Chris are also ready for the sake of a common purpose. In the dark lane, there is an exchange of information. The informant transmits the scroll with the necessary data, receives gratitude, and disappears. He discusses the strange taste of the customer, hinting at his unusual interests. In the distance, Mary watches the scene with surprise. The informant reports that he followed the alchemist who was expelled from the Allen group, though he did not hide. He was last seen near the forest on the outskirts of the capital, where the entrance to the new dungeon has recently appeared. Probably the alchemist collected materials and disappeared. Mary is shocked by the communication of events. The informant says that at the same time with the disappearance of the alchemist, the forest began to change. The beasts became active and turned into magical creatures. Perhaps the spirits are involved here. He looks closely at Mary, directly asks whether she does not hide something, and hints. Her passivity does not meet Alan's good intentions. Mary goes silently, stunned, immersed in alarming thoughts. She believes that nothing is special, just a little talent and magic of healing, enough to notice it. She recalls Alan's words that such as she is a lot. On her face, bitterness and feeling of emptiness. She previously believed, if there is a chance, she will be able to become someone needed. But now she understands. The one she wanted to support is already too far. She does not need a force that causes pain to others. It feels the burden of the consequences of indecision. The mysterious figure reminds that insolent decisions are wounded not only by the one who makes them, They suffer all around. Mary, lowering his head, states that he cannot stay in the detachment. There is silence in the room. Everyone looks at it. One of them, calling it by name, understands. The decision is final. With a sad smile, Mary silently says goodbye. In her look there is restrained pain, but the determination is not shaky. She approaches Alan and requires explanations. He gets up irritated. But he is restrained by comrades. They are asked to calm down and listen. The warrior with the bandage is strongly interrupted. He orders at least once to be silent. With a trembling voice, Mary confesses that it can no longer be part of the detachment. Silence becomes depressing. She openly recognizes, with her skills she is only a burden for the team. Lowering her head, Mary overcomes a wave of uncertainty, but confesses that she always tried to be a useful hero. Her voice varies between sadness and disappointment. Alan is silent, catching the meaning of her sincerity. Finally, Mary states that Alan no longer considers a hero. The group fades, silence, shock, and full confusion. Alan tries to answer, but her solid words overlap any excuses. The voltage increases. Mary opens what she kept in herself for so long. After Mary's accusations, Alan sits silently. His face is in the shade, the fingers are intertwined, the voice is calm, but it is threatened. He says, "Continue." In the air is a depressing silence. Mary in tears recalls how the river was expelled without hesitation, despite his loyalty. She is aware that she had to notice alarm signals earlier. Alan accuses that he always translates guilt, and it was through him that Fitz broke down and Matilda died. Her words penetrate everyone in the room. Mary is filled with pain. Alan's straight and rigid accusations. He ignored everything he escaped from. She states that the group is no longer waiting for him, so no one dares to contradict him. Even when Victor tries to stop it, Mary insists. She exclaims, "To call him a hero is a cruel joke." The cry breaks the silence, and Alan, with a dark and empty look, sits silently. Victor, indignant, screams too, "You have no right to call yourself a hero!" The exclamation of Victor echoes in the hall, imbued with anger and truth. Alan remains stationary. The silence around him is heavier than any word. Mary, breathing in and with tears, requires answer. And finally he says, but instead of repentance, a mockery. He blames Mary of sowing despair and destroys the morale of miserable complaints. In a cold tone, she states that her behavior is a disregard for the hero acting on the command of the king. Mary begins to understand all the cruelty of his words. Hiding behind the duty, Alan with a curved smile accuses Mary of the betrayal of the kingdom. He states that she deserves death for it, and without hesitation rushes to her, all stunned. Victor screams to stop, but it is too late. The threat of death has become apparent. The hero's mask falls. Alan, blinded by anger, tries to impose his power, but another member of the detachment interferes instantly, disagrees it, and openly indicates abuse of power. Victor restrains Mary so she does not take a careless step, but she explodes. He accuses Alan of cowardice, because he has never encountered his defects. The voltage reaches the limit. Everyone understands. Respect for Alan as a leader destroyed. Everything interrupts the arrival of the royal messenger. He firmly states that Mary's words are not betrayal, and Alan had no right to attack her. The messenger recognizes Mary's right to leave the group and sees no obstacles. He considers the case internal, strictly orders Alan to lower the sword. The messenger states, so far Mary takes his care, and clearly warns, if the violence comes, the whole group will stand before the court for failure to fulfill the heroic mission. Until the end of the current operation, no one has the right to interfere in her affairs. After, do what you want. He asks everyone to agree with the decision. Mary apologizes, trying to stop the conflict. Alan is silent. The atmosphere gradually subsides. The messenger, with a smile, tries to discharge the situation, jokes about a too unpleasant scene. Mary bows. Others try to move on after confrontation. After the tension, the detachment members are conceived. One recognizes that, with great responsibility to the state, misunderstandings are inevitable. Victor tries to smooth everything, recognizes that Alan was hard to hold back, but he clearly states, he bent. He calls him by his name, trying to return the dialogue to a smart bed. Alan ignores emotions and translates the topic. The main task is the subjugation of the dungeon as a symbol of the glory of the kingdom. With a cold expression, he states that anyone who tides their honor must be destroyed. Victor tries to keep calm. Alan smiles ominously and provocatively, noticing that Victor is still concerned about Mary. Mary, with trembling lips, whispers the river, with tenderness and regret. Alan, meanwhile, continues to smile with sadistic satisfaction. At the other end, the year looks surprised and moved, hearing her voice. He is in contact with Yuri through a magical communication scroll. She answered joyfully. Everything goes perfectly. Reports that the last strokes in the construction of the dungeon are completed. The first 2 levels under complete control. The first level is a labyrinth with traps. There are few monsters because the main goal is to psychologically destabilize the attackers. Each corner is designed to analyze the behavior of the invaders. Depending on the situation, enemies or obstacles may appear through portals, preparing for cruel fights further. The second level is a rocky forest with poor visibility. Here is the ideal conditions for the ambushes and tactics of the guerrilla war. The battlefield is designed for wave attacks and confusion. Plants and monsters are strategically. The entrance to the deep layers is guarded by the skeletons that ambush, using the relief until no one went on. The deepest level is the dragon's nest. After passing the previous traps, the invaders face the newly created fiery dragon. The whole zone burns. Its atmosphere burns everyone who dares to enter. The presence of the dragon makes this level almost inaccessible. Yuri calls him the perfect nest of love for himself and the master, the last border of defense. Since monsters of the same level are not always effective, the master uses alchemy and his own skills to select the best. All selected creatures receive gold elixirs, which enhance their strength and aura. This synthesis is rare. To collect strong monsters with good skills is almost impossible without a special gift. This gift is the source of true master's power. The guy looks at the dungeon with delight. He is surprised by his ability to find an unexpected but brilliant use. Even when asked, not worried, he answers calmly. The woman nearby shares his enthusiasm, both in anticipation of the results of their work. But suddenly, the moment interrupts the exclamation. Someone sounds their father, attracting their attention. The girl is angry that he cannot fight on the front line. It explodes with emotions, feeling worthless. But the guy reminds, her task is to protect the deepest level, and this is the most important role. It is a key defensive force, and the movement is its main weapon. Cruz gets a light touch on the head and prays. It turns red, but rejoices in recognition. The guy summarizes, from the elixir to the fire dragon, everything was created to emphasize its significance. He jokes that if she was sent to the expedition without preparation, it would all end with chaos. But in the middle of the phrase, he suddenly remembers Yuri, who is silent. The guy thanks sincerely for the support and guidelines that he received along the way, and it swears to protect the place they have created together. The woman is moved by his words. His eyes shine from emotions. She suddenly begins to sew in the turn, calling him a master. The guy watches in confusion, not fully understanding the cause of such a tumultuous reaction. Others celebrate a contract with a master, noting how much Yuri has changed. One reminds, a real test is just beginning. At this point, something invisible with a frantic power beats a creature in the forest. A new battle begins. The group notes that the energy of the dungeon attracts wild monsters, even if they have not yet entered. They conclude that the strength of the place has increased because monsters from higher levels appeared. Without hesitation, the group goes on. They believe that, having gained control of the dungeons, they will finally get rid of a false yoke. The atmosphere is tense. Everyone wants to complete the task sooner. One of them complains about the gloomy faces of his comrades. The other agrees, acknowledging that the voltage is hanging in the air. Meanwhile, in an empty hall, someone asks the question, whether everything goes according to the plan, hinting at a deeper subtext of events. Thanks to the information from the Guild of Thieves, a hero scandal is spreading across the capital. Even if it survives, its reputation has already been destroyed. They use the moment. The group plans to use the hike in the dungeon to become the real hero's embodiment. Their plan is to kill Alan Cole, so they want to finally erase the old image of the hero from memory. One of the conspirators states that their ally will become a new hero, whom everyone respects. They seek to change the very essence of heroism, adjusting everything to their own ideals. The voltage increases. Two appear in front of each other, one fearlessly ready to beat with anyone. The other confidently accepts the call. A relaxed man learns that Alan Cole with his detachment began an attack on the final dungeon. He calmly listens to the news while lying on the bed and having reflected everything. She smiles with the call, wanting to check that the candidates of the hero are worthy. Another group is evaluated as a possible hope of the kingdom. One mentions Tony Richards, the famous S-class of the adventurer, a candidate for hero. Others recognize the name and discuss his partners, a magician and a healer. It turns out that the guy was a scout of the Tony team and penetrated into the environment a few days ago. Looking back, they notice suspicious people. The guy calls Dora and Grain. The girl is confused without realizing what is happening. The group recalls Victor, noting that he will never give up the role of the leader. Suddenly, an unexpected guest appears among them, a dark figure that is surprising. Alan Cole appears to them with a piercing and threatening look. The guy immediately recognizes him and shouts his name. The girl nearby tries to remember whether it is the same man stunned by an unexpected meeting. Alan and Tony arrived with his comrades, jumped by the enemies by surprise. The protagonist immediately recognizes Alan, the one who expelled him. Although he declared earlier that he is indifferent to the invaders, now he admits, this meeting is quite different. The protagonist is aware, sooner or later he will have to face Alan and his team. He suspects that Mary could betray, draining information about the dungeon. He remembers how he was ready for this inevitable clash. He strongly states that he is in order and is ready to use all the forces against Alan and Victor. It is not revenge, but a way to destroy the past to which it belonged, and for the first time to go your own way. The hero challenges Alan. Meanwhile, his team explores the dungeon, commenting that the first level resembles a classic maze. But something has changed. They are discussing whether the previous intelligence will help you move on. The dorm gets the command to act and puts a strange device on the floor. The protagonist watches alert, trying to understand what it is. He notices that the device is not associated with alchemy. The device activates energy that penetrates the entire corridor of the dungeon. The protagonist is shocked. He does not understand what he did and is afraid of the influence of this mysterious mechanism. The dormus proudly explains. He created a device that automatically scans the materials in the dungeon and draws a map. Tony criticizes for a complex explanation, and Dorma sums up. It is just a device for creating a map already visited. Although traps and monsters are not revealed, the shortest way is a great advantage. Tony assumes the role of a leader. He says demining is not a problem, but a real threat is unexpected monsters. So the first is Victor, but he does not trust him. Tony replies that he has a special skill for such situations. Victor is stunned. The protagonist is aware. This map offsets the labyrinth. Yuri is worried, but he reassures. Only one of 100 strategies has become useless. He decides to contradeciate, to calculate the shortest route of enemies and send monsters there. Tony notes that assassin on the other side has a crazy agility and probably helped in intelligence. Despite lightness, it is dangerous. Tony decides the first thing to do is to eliminate this assassin. Half an hour after the start, the group moves without problems, encountering only one trap. They recognize everything is through the shortest route. But Tony notes, suspiciously quietly, and suddenly, an ambush. Monsters jump from above, attacking by surprise. Victor calls Litz, but he is calmly preparing for battle. Tony explains. Earlier, the team relied on the power of the hero, so he could not show his own skills. It activates the absolutization technique. The body automatically evades any impact. Monsters can't get it. But he adds that the equipment works only if both hands are free in other conditions. Victor is worried that a baby is going ahead, but Dorma reveals the truth. Tony is actually the oldest in the group. Alan, exhausted, asks who stands in front of him. In response, only a sinister smile. The enemy rushes forward and completes the battle with one blow. Alan corresponds to a powerful sword blow, destroying several monsters at once. The bodies fly away, cut into the walls, and Alan himself stands unwavering. The protagonist observes through a spherical artifact and is convinced. Tony evasion is a really result of skill. He notices that Tony evades even the attacks from the dead zones and guesses. Perhaps the key is not to attack himself. Recalls how during the preliminary invasion he was also kept cautious. The hero thinks, instead of a frontal attack, it is better to target the rear. But the problem, non-tone attacks do not have the opposite effect. Yuri reminds, Dorma gave Assassin a provocation potion. It causes monsters to attack only the one who drank. So it is impossible to switch aggression to others right now. The protagonist understands that the enemies have calculated everything. The traps are noticeable. The monsters do not get. It is impossible to change the focus. Yuri proposes to paint the room with traps, but the hero understands. It will not produce results, because even the skill of evasion will become useless without space. And they cannot spend resources collected for deeper levels and important green. As a result, he decides, it is better for someone else to activate the traps for them. But even then, the blow will not reach the main goal. The idea seems futile. However, repeating this opinion, he suddenly comprehends something important. Yuri says that this is their plan. He immediately takes on its implementation. The hero decides to make several changes to the final room of the first level. Meanwhile, the Tony group approaches the closed passage and, focusing on the map, assumes, in front of the second level. Tony confirms. This is the final hall of the first floor. They notice the passage is entangled by suspicious wires. A clear trap. Victor is surprised that the dungeon design is so careless. But Tony orders Lytus to neutralize the trap. He calmly agrees and takes the case. But suddenly the trap gets armored boar of Class B. Litz in surprise is a monster. He quickly analyzes the situation and understands. This is how the trap works. The released beast rushes to him. Due to the provocation effect, it is aimed at Tone. The hero wants to use it to activate the trap himself, but when a magical circle is lit between him and the monster, Tony realizes that he has calculated. It is applied to a curse of weight. His body is becoming more difficult. He does not have time to respond. Boar ram it at full speed. Dorma shouts his name in a panic. The scene breaks. The weight of the weight is activated throughout the room. Double the mass of the target and abandon its protection. For Litz, which relied on agility, it is a deadly blow. He is rejected with great force. The protagonist with Yuri rejoices. The plan has worked. The hero explains. For the light assassins, it is a curse deadly, but ideal for heavy attacks of armored boar. Yuri is fond of the master's vision. The protagonist understands that the weight has blocked the skill of automatic evasion. After all, activation requires light equipment and accurate weight. As a consequence, the blow involves a vulnerable point, destroying its defense. The team explores Litz. The skeleton is broken. It is barely alive. But Alan orders to leave him without regret. One of the women reminds that there is still a chance of survival. But Alan makes the decision to move on to the second level using the Dorma card to bypass the traps. Meanwhile, a band with a bandage proposes to force the command to move faster. But he stops himself, deciding to act differently, not to give the enemy more time to change the next level. While the group is watching, a seriously wounded man begins to mutter something. He tries to utter the name of Tony and barely stir his lips. Then the man with a bandage is coldly confessing that he organized an attempt on the king. 10 years ago, in Arley Castle, Lord Albert is amazed at how they could leave such a dangerous criminal. Another man replies, he is indifferent to the past. He is interested in talent. And this prisoner has a gift that will become valuable in the future. A hooded man with a creepy smile states that he has no name, and that he can be called anything. Aura of mystery only increases. Someone mocks, they say, you will not become beautiful words. The protagonist, looking thoughtfully at the horizon, replies that he will follow his ideals, what the price will be. Perhaps the beautiful words give people hope. The mysterious prisoner says that he will take all the dirt and darkness so that the other can follow the ideals without targeting his hands. In exchange, he asks that when his darkness is no longer needed, he is lost. He accepts his role without any doubt. Before leaving, Alan casts a look at Litz, thanks for his service, and says that he now has to get dirty his hands. And immediately, without fluctuations, it causes a deadly blow, cold-blooded, deprived of the life of a loyal colleague. A band with a bandage apologizes for inconvenience and calls on to move on. Alan sighs angrily that it was worth doing so before. Departing, a man with a bandage stops and silently promises Litu, we will meet. Deciding that the role of Litz was fulfilled, he will now do everything to earn the title of hero. Meanwhile, the protagonist analyzes the situation through the sphere. Despite the plan to exhaust the enemy at the first level, they arrived on the second with more forces, especially because of the appearance of 2 S-levels. He decides to change the strategy and give battle on the second floor. Asks the ally to detain enemies. She confidently promises that it will be easy. Moreover, she proposes to kill everyone at once, but the hero asks not to bend. The scene ends before a new collision. Alan is carefully exploring the terrain. The group passes the area with giant trees. The birds rise into the sky, attracting his attention. He wary into the forest. They find themselves in a new part of the dungeon that mimics the outside world, the forest and the sky. Dorma is amazed at the illusion of space, while others explain that the topic of this level is a fortress in the middle of the forest. This floor is even more dangerous than the usual maze, because there are no walls and laid paths, only chaotic nature. Many beginners do not die here from monsters, but from being lost in the wild. Dorma decides that now is the time to use a device for autocryptography. But the device does not work in the open area, which is very upsetting. He calls the device junk. Alan proposes to navigate natural methods, for example, a moss that grows on the north side of trees. This is enough to get the fortress. Subsequently, he asks the Dorma gold elixir. He, though nervously, agrees. But Alan explodes, calls the magician a fool for delay and requires just listening. Dorma denies. They have few people, which is only the beginning of the second level. Victor reassures Yuri, they say. Alan is now calm. But it acts, based on the instincts of the beast, and it is anxious. The protagonist group discusses the situation. It is likely that a strong enemy is hidden at this level. The hero notes, victory over Assassin has brought many points, but expensive. All the golden elixirs went to strengthen the monsters of the second level, and if the enemy moves faster, it is unknown what else can appear. The group is suddenly attacked by the enemy. One of the members has time to shout the warning, and the hero only scornfully points out that they are just a handful of slack. Meanwhile, a woman with blonde hair orders her allies to win time while she creates new golden elixirs to strengthen monsters. She watches the battle with interest to see what the hero is really worth. The detachment moves carefully, and a man with long hair is reminiscent of keeping defense. He explains that the forest area created inside the dungeon enhances monsters through a rich menu. At this point, the hero reflects the monster's attack and prepares for battle. Alan, Victor, and Tony form a reverse combat formation, protecting the rear group. Victor assumes the protection of the most vulnerable direction. The Dorma scatters the reinforcing elixirs, and Iron creates smoke that treats allies and blinds enemies. Christopher uses open windows to cause point magical strokes, maintaining the rhythm of the command offensive. Cruz notes that the enemies quickly adapt to the protracted battle. They plan to attack the first wave peak to destroy the formation in front of the second. Victor is shocked by the amount and endurance of the monsters. Despite their everyday life, they come endlessly. Alan feels something wrong and shouts to Victor to evade, but too late. Victor looks confused and gets a devastating blow. The danger hangs over the whole group. The Wicked with an Echidine smile watches while Alan protects the wounded Victor. She laughs, calls Alan a rude, and mocks his parents. The hero reacts with contempt without succumbing to provocations. Alan and Victor are intensely followed by the enemy. Its presence scares more than any monster. Despite its external innocence, Alan feels a true evil in it. Victor warns, "Do not judge in appearance." Alan confesses that it was this aura that alarmed him from the beginning. Suddenly, the woman, smiling, rushes to Victor. He does not have time to react and gets a powerful blow. Victor is seriously injured, coughing. The group is shocked, and the door shouts from rage. The enemy takes control. It orders the monsters to destroy the rear until it holds the front. Its goal is to leave the coward of Dorma to death. But Victor rises, releases a magical wave that sweeps enemies and turns the battlefield into ruins. The woman only coldly evaluates the result. Although the field is destroyed, the enemy just smiles. She was struck by Victor's speed. For the first time, someone scratched her skin. Victor, breathing heavily, is preparing to continue the battle, and the allies are called to strengthen the defense. With shout, Victor again rushes to the attack. The sword is alert. He wants to destroy the enemy himself. Alan silently watches the desperate step of his friend. Victor rushes with full force, decisively approaching a mysterious woman. The earth explodes. Shells appear around it, siege, but it does not stop, focused only on the target. The enemies do not have time to do anything. The woman smiles, sharply beats Victor in his face, saying that he entertains her better than she thought. The blow hit exactly. His head throws back and he screams with pain. Cruz is shocked. This woman is just playing with Alan. He thought they were equal, but she effortlessly keeps the fight under control and dominates every movement. Alan finally admits that her strength is much exceeding the expected, and she is bullied with a cold smile. She says it's just a game, and she asks whether it is all that he is capable of. Alan desperately tries to activate his ability as the enemy brutally beats him, and, with his eyes shaken, says just to breathe already. He mentally visually calls for power, but nothing happens. It surprises her, because she also expected at least some reaction. Meanwhile, Cruz is surprised from the outside. Alan should already be activated under such pressure. Alan shocked. Is that all? Cruz also does not understand how the battle ended so quickly. Everything seems to be lost. The woman is approaching to get Alan. He falls to the ground, seems to take a blow. Suddenly, Tony appears, blocks her attack, and declares that the rear is under control. Alan, angry, asks that with support, but Tony is confident. Suddenly, a sinister figure appears on the field. Alan stifles as a huge runic goal rises from the ground. Dorma, squeezing, smiles and says that he activated him, as soon as he realized how strong the enemy is. Alan only creaks his teeth, grunting "TH", although he understands. The advantage is now on their side. The woman is amazed, looking at the giant rising in front of her. Her face is full of surprise and confusion. She tries to understand that it is a creature that has emerged from nowhere and has completely changed the course of the battle. The land of the second floor is filled with magical energy of monsters, and runes on the body of the golem enhance it even more. The group observes, impressed. The woman smiles in the glasses. The alchemist exceeded her expectations, but the enemy looks contemptuously. They say, "It is just a doll on the threads." Cruz, crowded with confidence, goes forward, shouting that the size is not the main thing. The ally tries to stop it, but the goal is already preparing a blow. The goal begins a powerful counterattack that shocks everyone. A huge monster appears near the girl. He stands for the hostess and prepares to fight the golem. She observes calmly, confident in her preference. The monster begins to behave strangely. It glows and makes strange sounds. The black-haired guy realizes that it is not bluff, and it is anxiously watching. The girl is surprised. She does not understand what is happening. The guy realizes with horror. He was a distracting maneuver. The main goal is to run a trap that imposes a powerful weakening on the enemy. He screams the cross to retreat immediately, but it is only annoying. The group decides to retreat to avoid new losses. The plan is to solve everything in the fortress. They are afraid that Cruz will suffer from debuffa. Meanwhile, the woman with the monster acknowledges that the giant would not be able to go to the fortress because of the size. Before leaving, she warns, next time their end will come. The hero meets these words with a tense look. She quit the last threat, pray and wait for the worst. The group looks silently as enemies and monsters retreat. They sigh easily. At least this time they survive. Victor is surprised to confess that he does not believe how they succeeded. Alan grabs a magic for a collar and screams, "You don't have to consider yourself too smart." She neglected him from the beginning of the hike. She tries to justify, but he shouts that everything he wants is that she obeys orders. Another friend notes that although she is alive. Alan adds, "She survived thanks to gold." Alan takes a step back and says he did not count from the beginning. But Victor thanks Dormy for his efforts and tries to support. They say, Alan is just evil, because for the first time in a long time he got a good blast. However, he still notes that even with good intentions to act without order, a mistake. Suddenly, Dorma hesitates and turns to him. He confesses that he found something strange near the monster's bodies when creating a golem. Victor shows a violet and asks if someone recognizes this item. This is what Dorma has discovered. Meanwhile, Cruz, wounded and disappointed because he has not defeated any enemy, receives support from the allies. They remind that the main purpose was fulfilled, and then the pursuit would be too risky. They summarize, the golden elixirs are enough to destroy the characters before their lifting to the 3rd floor. Discussing enemies, they remember Alan and Victor. The magician is too versatile. It can attack and defend themselves, and the healer uses smoke that treats and interferes with seeing. This creates additional difficulties. They also talk about Dorma. His unpredictability was a real surprise. He always pulls out some aces from the sleeve. Cruz acknowledges that rumors of his alchemical advantage were not an exaggeration, but it remains anxious feeling. Something is wrong. She seems to feel there is a little deeper that she cannot understand yet. Yuri, embarrassing, diminishes his abilities. She confesses that on the background of the master's genius, she is nothing. The group begins to guess. Dorma uses inventions that go beyond the alchemy and may have its own motives. They recall that Alan chose Dorma not only for skills, but also for the ability to clearly obey orders. Note, only Alan took a gold tincture, which could be the weakness of the team. And yet, there is a suspicion of a person among monsters with knowledge of alchemy. The group has a secret conversation. Victor asks not to say anything, Alan, promising to talk when the right moment will come. They recognize, few people can create a gold tincture, even among them. Victor, thoughtful and alert, looks at the river and thinks, maybe he is? He suspects that the year is involved in a person among the monsters, or something worse. The group estimates losses after battle. They say they lost their comrade, and the hero was seriously injured. For them, it was a blow. They look at the fallen enemy and suggest that it may have been their direct ancestor. This is rare. Then they discuss whether it was worth saving someone, risking everyone. There is a conversation about honor and true heroism. One of them says, if the hero had died there, it would be a name. The true hero does not achieve fallen, but wins with dignity. The other, tired of arguing, silently agrees. Meanwhile, Dorma assures that he has installed an automatic interception system in the golem and asks a friend to focus on recovery. He only briefly replies. Victor with Dorma concludes, only a few can create a gold tincture. They look at the river with suspicion. It becomes known that the year is a self-taught, never in the guild of alchemists, but was part of the hero group. Dorma looks at him contemptuously, coldly speaking that the year is unworthy to be in the Alan group. The year takes the tincture that the Dorma passes to him. He explains, this is a special version of the gold tincture. It enhances already available abilities. The year is alert and does not fully understand what the alchemist is. The effect depends on the human potential. Dorma is annoying. The year changed the formula of the legendary tincture without having the right. But he even admits he has skills because he was with the heroes. Looking at, she notices something strange in the tincture and cannot understand what exactly. The year smiles while Dorma studies it. She understands. This is quite different. As if the amateur tried to repeat what he saw, not understanding the essence. And the year opens. He created his version from scratch using other ingredients. This is what the geniuses worked on for years. And he did it himself. The size of the achievement is impressive. Dorma does not believe in what he saw. She tries to convince herself that she could also create it. For her, the year is an amateur. But the truth is different. She understands. If for her alchemy is the meaning of life, and for him, a hobby, how did he be able to surpass her? It undermines her confidence. The year remembers the past when it stood among the crowded hall. He laughed at Fitz, explaining the main rule of the group, in no circumstances to angry Alan. You can see how much the hero affects everyone, even the strongest. Matilda first appears here. She seems like a magician. The atmosphere in the command is tense. The year understands. He replaced someone who was ruthlessly thrown away after his arrival. It turns out that most members of the group joined for the benefit of the benefit, glory, wealth, or to get rid of debt. Their situation is unstable. The hero easily changes people. Despite this, everyone recognizes they were chosen for their abilities, but there is distrust and disdain in the air. One of the girls considers everyone to be laziness without ambitions, but despite disgusting, it is a group of a hero, and she will use this occasion, even swallowing her pride. In 2 months, the alchemist asks to increase the budget, to create a stable elixir production line, which will help during expeditions. Alan is annoyed and pressed on her, questioning her usefulness in the group. He accuses her of inability to perform even small tasks, calling the ballast. Orders to return to the room immediately and do what it should. Despite the good conditions and resources, the alchemist acknowledges that its activity is too limited. After another failure in experiments, it despairs. It is bitten by the idea. It does not waste time, marrying empty results. She begins to doubt whether the hero's group will bring true value to her future. A stranger approaches the Dorma and surprises it by calling it by name. And not only because of involvement in the hero group. He heard about her work, a project on a combination of alchemy and magic, neglected by academics. His words deeply affect her. The man is enthusiastically praised by her research. For him, it is a real discovery. He offers her support to continue her scientific work. The Dorm is interested, but asks what he needs instead. This chapter breaks. An hour has passed since the start of diving into the dungeon. On the ground floor, the Assassinka Letty was killed. In the first-level forests, there was a battle between Alan's group and the horde of Cruz. They were able to repel the attack thanks to a rune, created alchemist Dorsma. The group moves forward with a golem headed by the avant-garde. He protects and monitors, though wastefully consumes fuel. Rounded soil facilitates control. Dorma dreams that his invention will change the world. Alan reminds, it's not time to think about profits. They remember that it is still in the dungeon, and the death of Letty is a consequence of carelessness. Some people say, beginners are too happy or naive. The researcher understands that to return to science, the means and real achievements are needed. Automatic map and goal have become possible through the help of Tony and its group. If they prove their effectiveness, everyone will win. In the plans of Man, to provide Alana the title of hero. But the real purpose of the group is to kill Alan. A woman who dreams of returning to the academy states that she will become a real heroine. Even if she did not agree, the plan will still come true. After his death, they will capture the dungeons and appropriate the title. She understands that the only way for her is to act on her own. The initial plan for the fortress is a secret penetration, but the enemies are amazed, seeing as the goal went straight forward. Because of their size, they did not expect a direct attack. They understand that it is already a siege of the fortress, and they will have to fight in the frontal collision. Skeletons are covered with arrows from the upper walls of the fortress, creating deadly rain. The goal covers the allies, but gradually gets damage. They cannot attack from afar, and the rune weakening only acts on contact. Alan commands that the goal must break the gate at any cost. The Elfka watches the situation with a smile, calling it a trifle. She confesses that she also did not expect it. She's surprised that Alan rejoices in difficult moments. He confirms he really likes it. The Elfkia adds, alchemy is the transformation of the unexpected to discover. Perhaps that is why it also has fun. Alan with a smile watches the golem, waiting for him to exceed the expectations. And indeed, he knocks the gate with a goal, opening the way forward. Alan gives the command to the assault, and the whole group breaks rapidly until the goal punches the defense. But suddenly something dark and huge begins to move, causing panic. The appearance of Averna shocks everyone. In open terrain, they are defenseless. Alan orders to flee to the fortress. He remains to restrain the monster and give them time. Averna severely attacks, injures Victor, destroying protection. In panic, Alan and the researcher scream his name. Alan is confused, seeing Victor in the wounded but quickly mastering himself. He screams to stop complaining and running forward. The researcher hesitates, but Alan presses, declaring, "The weak here will die." Dorma agrees. Alan is right. The retreat paths are cut off. The fortress is shining with monsters. The movement forward is the only reasonable option. The researcher offers a night vision potion, but Alan refuses. He does not need. The opponents are convinced that no one left on Alan's side. They are preparing for a decisive clash, and Alan, despite the loss of a friend, orders to go forward. The group is worried about Victor's condition. They are scared that there is almost no time left. If they lose this level, then the third, with a fiery dragon. The teacher reassures Yuri, saying, the restructuring of the dungeon is part of the plan. He envisaged such a development. They calculate that the enemy has 5 strong ones, and even with the dragon they will only be able to restrain for 5 minutes. He hesitates. Even if you throw a circular there, they do not know what to expect from the dorm. If you neglect it as just an alchemist, you can lose everything that was built. The teacher breaks between the decision and doubts. The main character severely rejects the blow. In memories, connection with Yuri, working together on alchemical dungeons. In his thoughts, he yells at his father, feeling the pain of loss. Cruz rags, why is not yet given the team to attack together? She reminds, everyone was near when the enemy broke, and he said they would give everything. So why is it everything only means his decision? Is true devotion not in a joint battle side by side? The Elfka supports Cruz. She says, Yuri was doomed before she was saved, and she does not regret anything, even if you have to give life. The Elfka reminds that he saved Yuri and asks no longer to delay. It is time to make a decision. The hero hears it, impressed and immersed in reflection. She reaches out and says, it is he who is the master of this dungeon. The guy looks at her in allies, hesitation. But he reiterates in his thoughts, yes, this is true. All responsibility for this place lies on it. He recalls that alchemy has always been unpredictable. The path from hundreds of attempts and mistakes. Nothing has changed. Yuri and Cruz thanks for her support confidently. The moment has come to act. Although he understands the risk, he looks forward with a decisive smile. With the view of the allies, the hero firmly proclaims, let's start the experiment. Alan Group moves the corridor littered with monsters. The dorm is checking with the map. The main hall is ahead. It is advisable to be careful not to be trapped. Alan goes in silence, focused. He goes to the big yard where enemies are already waiting. Smiling, he says, it is here that the finale will be decided. On the faces of the opponents, complete determination. Under the darkening, Alan closely monitors the situation. He is approaching the enemy with a mockery. He asks where his forest army went. The battle is just beginning. The enemy is caused by the orca and the boss troll, they say, cannot spend strength on it. They come out of the shadows, getting ready to stop Alan. She adds that the forces must be preserved for others, teasing Alan, forcing him to boil from anger. It is mocked. I hope that the little one will save you again. Alan clenches his teeth. It explodes fury, rushing into the battle with the sprout of power, causing a devastating blow. The allies were amazed. They did not expect such force. They shout him, trying to hold back. The narrator recalls that the forest shows how stronger the Cruz was. But Alan is not a weak. If they attack directly, it can destroy everything. So it is decided. Monsters on the forefront restrained Alan. While they stop it, Cruz breaks into the rear, a strategically correct move. Dorma screams to Aaron. He immediately understands. I understand! And he is preparing to act according to the plan. Cruz scornfully says that the smoke curtain will not stop it. But Dorma calmly says, explosion. A powerful outbreak froze Cruz just during the attack. The magical explosion forms a huge clump and raises a cloud of debris. Meanwhile, Aaron is tracking Cruz. It moves from the first hour. It is prepared for interception. Alan blocks the troll, and Aaron gets damage. The enemy decides to first eliminate Small, that is Cruz. Cruz is already preparing a new blow. It is full of concentrations, her face is icy. And suddenly he shouts. Alan has time to match her speed, even without any reinforcement. It reveals that Aaron has the magic of smoke. It spreads flammable dust and captures movements by particles in the air. And Tony can predict the attacks of the enemy on barely noticeable changes in the smoke. In the dungeon, it gives them a huge advantage. Tony launches a magical rocket, and Alan dissolves in the fog, knocking down the opponents from the Panther. Watching Tony understands. Alan took advantage of the explosion to dissolve in smoke and escape. It struck everyone. Alan is aware that such a coordination is the real force of the rank S. They do not rely on one strategy and always cover each other's weakness. Cruz is no longer suitable for confrontation with such a team. Tony notes that they have learned a lot from last battle. While the Alan holds the enemies in the melee, the team destroys the target. Aaron suggests that the Dorm will not use any move that would threaten the allies. Seeing the situation, the vampire decides to go to Alan, and Aaron realizes that it is a reasonable move. At this point, Tony perfectly prepares the attack. It takes a position, pulls out weapons, and begins to accumulate force for a decisive impact. Monsters suddenly fade or suffer a strange influence. The hero only gives out e.g. Aaron, Chris, and another ally are preparing for action, and the girl exclaims, they are ready to change the course of the battle. The group imposes a perfect prison, creating a huge magical circle that completely covers the arena. The enemies look around. Tony looks seriously. Alan, annoyed, shouts, "What the hell is taken away? Is it in general?" Dorma calls Tony, preparing to reveal the true purpose of the trap. The team completed the perfect prison. Aaron exclaims happily, "We did it, Tony-san!" He replies, "Yeah." They operate according to plan. Tony wishes Aaron success and follows an agreement, but a sudden monster goes to the attack. Aaron laughs. Looking at Alan, resists and says, "Resistance is futile. A victory for them." Tony explains that this is not a regular spell. It works on the principle of alloy. The magic of the two is combined into a single supersonic barrier. They confidently say that they will prove the power of this technique of the academic world. Alan, in anger, looks at the trap. He moves forward, stating that they have underestimated him. No one will be able to hold back his strength. Smiling boldly, he releases energy while the enemies are wary. The alchemist keeps control over the barrier. It is self-renewed even after damage. He proudly calls him a perfect prison, but Alan is already annoyed with long speeches. The alchemist reveals the true purpose of the trap. It is to keep Alan a living and stable control of his vital energy. He asks why, and in response he hears, "Every magic effect is part of a guarantee of success." The woman explains, "In this prison, no one will be able to harm another, at least as if she tried." To prove it, she attacks Alan, and he sees with surprise, no harm. The spell really works. While Tony goes to clean the main dungeon, the woman says, Alan and his opponent will remain here. She reveals that Tony intends to personally challenge the owner of the dungeon and win without assistance, to prove that the title of hero is worthy. Alan is shocked, his gaze is dying. The owner of the dungeon analyzes the situation. If the Dorma is right, the perfect prison can be broken by breaking the flow of magic between the three mockers. He hesitates, but orders urgently to enter the monsters into the hall. The plan must be fulfilled. He is surprised that the troll and orc have been defeated too quickly. Suspects that Tony hides the trump card. Tony, with a smile, says that he did not expect permission to go alone, and the elf ironically replies, "It looks like trust, although in fact, not at all." The team explains. Tony went forward not only because of trust, but also because they want to watch his actions. In parallel, they order to restrain Tony and try to save Cruz. It becomes obvious that the entire assault of the dungeon has been carefully planned since Albert turned to them. They discuss abilities that, under certain conditions, give inhuman power. Alan is just smiling, but he explains. For example, the ability of instant death, which works only on the night of the new moon, and this is the moment. Tony is preparing to activate it. Everyone is stunned. One scratch is an instant death. Ordinary battle becomes impossible. The plan with a potion that works after the injury is no longer senseless. The strategy has failed. Group in despair. They do not know how to proceed. Magical observation becomes visible. Even without the ability, the enemy has the power as in tone. But now it is exhausted, while the enemy is in full form. Therefore, a friend warns the boy that the situation is critical. They lay a temporary truce. The guy asks to help destroy the barrier, promising to find out everything later. The woman agrees with a smile. But the alchemist warns, it is useless. The barrier is self-renewed. Only the destruction of the external leader can help. Suddenly Victor appears. All stunned, Alan shouts his name. Victor coldly points out that the situation has been complicated again. Victor rushes forward. The blow is so powerful that it destroys everything around. The power affects everyone. Somewhere else, someone is watching the destruction and says the cold. A year. The garbage that was simply removed. Recently, Alan looks scattered. This is noticed by the team. The next day, a study of the new cave. The replacement of a team member may cause change. Someone cold states, Alan is no longer a fighter or a friend. He is offered suspicious potions. They say, it accelerates blood circulation and relieves fatigue. But Alan is alert. He is surprised by Victor's sharp step. Looking after him, Alan thinks that he is happening at all. He feels the burden of the loss of River and fear that has swept the whole group. In the end, he confesses to Victor that he cannot go with them next. Alan meets a Cruz in tavern, who happily says that he was sent by a friend. He celebrates. The team is finally collected. Now you can go into a real adventure. Alan only matches the short GM, concentrated by reflecting everything that is happening. He is informed that the Senate is considering the possibility of depriving him of the title of hero. But they can change your mind if it cleans several dungeons. Despite this, the officer asks not to worry. In that case, he will bear the weight of this title. Friends swear to support Alan. He feels as before his eyes all years of life. The mysterious old man tells Alan that he is not the only one with the potential of the hero, but has a special chance. Advises to appreciate people in the way. After his disappearance, Alan remains with the question, who was it? Thinking about what he heard, Alan smiles ironically. He, like him, gave the title of hero, the greatest joke he heard. Embarrassed and angrily looks at the one who said directly, "You do not deserve to call the hero." After a heavy pause, the stranger goes, but adds that you can still become a real hero. In these words, belief in the change. The wounded Victor, breathing hard, rises through the debris. He laughs tired and confesses, "Not time to dream. Without him, Alan is hopeless." In these words, determination not to throw a friend. Smiling, Victor looks at the magical field and calls Alan. He seemed to expect such a situation. He tries to discharge the tension, remembering how something like this was, but it is only alarming comrades. Although it suffers from pain, Victor jokes about how once Amarace thugs were surrounded by bandits. Annoyed, Alan asks to stop and help kill enemies. The guy replies that nonsense is carried by Alan, but he liked to watch how easily the year would do with it. Victor looks around in search of the river, imagining how he would even break this barrier with a gold tincture. Alan seems to be lost in memories, but the enemy provokes, "Stop, because you will open your soul even more." Then he is preparing for the attack, seeking to finally finish Alan, because his body is protected only from his neck down. At that moment, Victor appears again and beats all his strength. Even observers are stunning. He manages to interrupt magic for a moment due to his attack, but the barrier did not completely fall. Mana flow remained intact. Alan realizes that it is impossible to delay, and orders Victor to catch up with Tony, who went to the owner of the dungeon himself. The year asks Alan not to conquer the dungeon alone and trust his comrades. Looking into the void, he asks Victor to take care of Alan, not even knowing where he is hiding. He believes that Victor will be able to fix everything. The year nods. He understood everything and is ready for action. He calls Cruz and Julia, who looks in surprise. He says he will now voice the plan. Everyone will gain a key role. The year reflects on its role as a team in the team. Always the first takes a blow. This allows you to analyze the type of enemy attack and look for a way to counterattack while he protects his comrades. These are the same extra seconds that save. He understands. Such a vision is possible only in those who are often on the verge of death. He always knows exactly how much force you need to kill, and what the guilt follows. It is the ability to sympathize with the pain of others. That's what distinguishes it. But there are people who do not know the limits. They do not restrain. This is a completely different level than just keeping a knife. The year looks at Alan. His strength goes beyond good and evil, breaks fear and logic. And in such cases, there are only two ways: to be crushed or follow it. He chose the second, to be attracted and followed. Cruz confirms that he still has the right artifact. The year says is the only way. The elves are amazed and ask if they are serious. Alan is annoying that they are still chatting, and says contemptuously, "Why not turn to an old magician immediately?" Meanwhile, everyone is preparing for the plan. Alan begins to mock the Cruz, stating that her father is a pervert if he forced the monster to call himself a dad. She denies fiercely. Alan does not stop. The true owner of the dungeon should not fall the victim of such simple tricks. Alan laughs, calling her dad pathetic. Cruz does not stand. The face flashes from anger, and she barely holds back anger. Hearing the image to his father, Cruz explodes fury. Aaron notes that in this place where you cannot die, it is easy to lose vigilance. The wounded Christopher assures that everything is fine. Thanks to Aaron's healing magic, they still have time to recover. They remember Victor, who went alone. Christopher mocks, they say. He is just a wooden doll for blows, without a chance against a deadly attack. Victor wanders the dark corridors of the dungeon, is lost. The map has not been studied. Fear and doubts are slowly growing. She recalls that he should stop the tone, but fatigue and confusion are delayed. The thoughts of Mary breaks the dark voice that invites you to approach closer. Victor appears a year with a smile, remembering how he once offered adventure. It brings potions to fight together, and extends it to Victor. Victor grabs the river, asking if he is real. He replies calmly as if it were everyday life. He says that at the beginning of the battle, as always, he was scared and hid. and the elves, meanwhile, think with anxiety if Victor will stand. The year says his mission. The master tries to comfort, but insists, not because of the duty, but because of Victor's confidence, who thinks of the present, not the past. The year asks if Victor is all well. He only coughs. He complains about the taste of the potion, asks the next time to think about the one who must swallow it. But he adds, he still trusts his home recipes. The year turns red and apologizes. Together they move on. The elf orders the master to be careful. With the help of a magic leaf, they see a map with the location of enemies and their position. The purpose remained quite a little. The year cheeses up. Victor replies briefly. Forward. Going, he thinks a year. Though he fulfills Alan's orders, it seems that he does not justify his expectations. Stops and confesses Victor, feels that he has caused him pain. He looks silently, understanding the friendliness of a friend. The year shrines his shoulders and says so. Yes, Victor replies, not waiting for an apology. He just needed to say it. They find themselves in the tavern. Victor lifts the mug, and the year smiles in confusion, realizing the depth of these words. The year and Victor approach huge doors. Julia confidently says, well, forward. The year with a smile conveys the course of Victor. He takes a step. The door opens and a figure that says, the time of the next trial. Victor is strongly entering the hall behind him. Without hesitation, the roll of the team's shield. Alan watches from afar as long as the head is coming to an end. Victor is ready to defend his. The year specifies in Julia the rules of the dungeon. The monsters created here disappear after death, regardless of the will of the owner. But the owner can absorb dead adventurers, Julia confirms. Now the year understands all the seriousness. Victor confirms that he realized how the DP system works. It is created by the vitality of the dead bodies. Alan notes in surprise that Victor is still holding on. Even such a spoiled apple, as he does not prevent the hero from manifesting. Victor looks at the enemy. He says he understands his motives, but does not keep evil. It will simply stop it, because it is so easy to win. The opponent replies that his ideals are not so cheap to fall through the pawn that blindly executes orders, offers to try. Victor approaches Tone, which is already making a fatal blow. He says he wants to end with him without pain. The year, in shock, recognizes that Tony is going to use the ability of instant death. The year explains that Tony's ability is almost invincible in the dungeon. It effortlessly destroys even the troll, the orca, and the giant abuse. The year notes that even instant death has its weaknesses. This is where their plan holds. He explains, a figure is a creature with attributes of the undead. Although weak skeletons and zombies are a common thing, creatures like zombie dragon do not appear natural. Such creatures occur only artificially when they are specifically caused by magic in the dungeons. That's what is the limitation of threat. The year is cold. I do not need the resurrection body. It can create a new runny nose from any enemy that has fallen into the dungeon. It impresses and scares the allies, revealing the true level of its calculations. The hard year sees a mysterious enemy in a cloak with a hidden face in front of him and Victor. The atmosphere thickens, and the feeling of threat increases. The year is amazed at Victor's meek operation and begins to read the ominous spell. Victor's body shudders, the eyes expand from pain. But he quickly comes to his senses, breathing hard. The year sighs. Embarrassed in rage, Victor rushes to Tone with a cry and causes a powerful blow that has a surprising enemy. Tony's shocked. His ability did not work. He is annoyed, believing that it is just a scratch. But in the eyes, doubt and fear. Victor, with a firm look, says that the hero's shield will not fall so easy. Tony, embarrassed, does not understand why nothing works. Victor's exacerbated, exposed to the belt, he calmly states. He was ready to die if he protects his friends. Mary screams to take care of himself. The year is silently watching. Victor recognizes, does not have talent like Alan. His only gift is his own body, but he never considered it weakness. Its greatest value is what he sees through the eyes of a friend. It is worth living for it and even die, without pity. Falling exhausted, Victor thinks if it is enough, maybe that's all he could give. Because it does not matter whose dream was, his or Alan. It is important that he did everything he could. Meanwhile, Alan says to Yuri that he will become the strongest lord of the dungeon. Yuri, with a burning look, replies that he also has something valuable. The courage to give up everything for his own vision of the future. In these words, memories are woven. Those whom it seeks to protect, add the strength of its decision. Yuri sits with a sage on the balcony, conducting a deep conversation. He seriously asks why Alan was chosen by the hero. It is important for him to understand the reason. Why is such a dark figure? The old man is silently reflecting. Subsequently, the alchemists are not judged in the categories of good and evil. Even if Alan is humiliated, it has absolute power and devastating self-confidence, traits that lead to power. He only helped him find the battlefield. Yuri is moving confesses. Now he understands, because she saw Alan's strength. The old man shows something in his palm, hinting that he intends to convey something important. The guy looks in surprise. The flame has not gone away. A confident girl reaches him a potion, saying that her father prepared for this situation. The guy hesitates, but silently takes the bottle. She will tease him, asking what he is so afraid of. It is indignant. Gold potion. Asks how it can help if created for monsters. She mockingly calls him a little head. He says everything is obvious. The guy explodes from rage, firmly squeezing the potion in his hand. An annoyed girl demands that he has already shut up and drink it. That's all they can give. There is no time for nonsense. The girl hints that after the potion, perhaps even his ability will return. The guy is puzzled, does not understand what she means. Surprised, he recalls how he had already drank such a potion, to no avail. And he decides that if the force had to return, it would have happened. Annoyed, he thinks that this girl knows too much about his ability. This only exacerbates his anxiety. The warrior is annoyed. From the presence of another, he is already tingling. He doubts whether to go according to a plan that does not know anything. Looking at the potion, he recalls the river, and something deeply disturbed in thoughts. Meanwhile, the other begins to recognize in him a familiar figure. He remembers how he never considered him equal, only an experiment. The smile was gentle, but the look was spoiled. That is why he expelled him, realizing that their connection was fake. Alan breaks into a cry, proudly stating that he is the hero Alan Cole. He did everything he did, without anyone's help. He threatens to kill anyone who dare to neglect them. Sue me, some comments. It looks like he was crazy. The girl transmits a message from her father. Her words are cold. They are not interested in the heroes who die here. If Alan does not swallow his pride and drink potions, he will die, and not proving who he is. Angry and full of arrogance, Alan shouts that he is the strongest hero. At that moment, he still drinks a potion. Others observe, affected by energy that starts flowing from it. Covered by force, Alan emits unrestrained power. The massacre is about to start. He destroys a magical prison in one blow. This is shocking, Christopher. He just laughs, embarrassed. Alan laughs, calls everyone weak and hunted, because without the true power of knowledge is worthless. In the impulse of madness, he cries that his thoughts and desires have exceeded all the calculations. He is special, incredible, invincible. Christopher, observing this madness, understands. The effect caused the potion that he accepted to activate the resurrection skills. He asks cold whether Alan has already looked for his life before his death. Alan looks at the enemy with the cold, raises his finger and says he will not even give time to the last words. Let him die quickly and painlessly. The explosion of force, and he rushes forward to full, shocking the enemy. Tony murmurs that if you blind it, he may be mistaken. Without it, their main Cossack, the break of the magic cage, is equated with a sentence. Aaron and Christopher are already moving to the next stage, and the last resistance of Aaron only replaced one death by another. The strong spirit begins to manifest itself using Alan's body as a repository, following their pact. The earthen king of the spirits, the trump card of Alan, who is summoned with a confident smile, aware of the weight of his step. Alan grabs Aaron and begins to torture it, calling a traitor. It requires explanations before killing it. Aaron screams with pain, realizing she will die right here in torment. Alan continues to torture, accusing her of corruption and mocking it that she spent the loopard to create her devices. But Aaron replies proudly, he does not understand what it means to be an alchemist. She explains, modern alchemy is the result of a century of research, including its contribution. Alan is angry with whether she is still justified. He shouts that she will die here and no one ever recognizes her work. All her research is completed at this moment. The crippled Aaron asks, why? And hints that Alan's heart himself rejects what is happening. She says it is the alchemist who will be his winner. Alan is confused and annoyed, does not understand what she meant. Alan brutally beats Aaron, evil because she still says without his permission. Calls her worthless to the very end. But even lying in the wounded, the girl only fails for herself spoken. Before her death, she silently asks someone to take care of the situation, realizing that to put everything on him is unfair. The battle continues with a new tension. Alan looks coldly as a stranger picks up Aaron's body, accusing Alan of soullessness. He mocks. They say, decided to read morals or show pity? A fair-haired young man watches and doubts whether their choice was correct, because everything goes exactly according to the plan. But when he gathered with his thoughts, he decides to act. Alan instantly attacks him with a frantic force, accusing him of betrayal and sparkling with a crazy smile. He rushes to the enemy, but he has time to evade. The girl, observing the side, understands. Alan became even faster and stronger, so the threat is increasing. Alan again rushes forward, remembering how he was deceived on the previous floor. A smug rival asks if he still considers it a children's game. Alan, with crazy eyes, makes it clear that this battle is already real. He flies up, trying to draw a devastating blow from above. But the enemy meets him in the air and kills him in the ground with such force that a huge crater is formed. The opponent acknowledges that gross force does not always decide, and decides to change tactics. It produces dark energy and attacks rapidly. Alan did not expect it. He was preparing for defense. Despite the pressure, Alan does not stop. His enemy applies tricks, trying to knock the hero out of balance. Outraged, he blames the enemy of cheap tricks, making it clear he will not step away. Alan responds lightly to the attack, at such a speed that the enemy admits he far superns ordinary people. Full of determination, Alan rushes to the attack, crying to die. But something makes him move back. He needs to better study the situation to find a weak place. The monster army suddenly appears. The voltage on the battlefield increases sharply. The girl is surprised by this solution. Alan is angry, seeing the enemy destroys his bats one by one. The enemy retains calm, gives Alan to splash the rage until he screams. How much else he needs to be destroyed in order for the enemy to finally die. Cruz begins to feel exhaustion. The team is aware, despite its efforts, the risk is too high. The master orders immediately. Everyone has to leave the hall until it gets worse. The group tries to escape, but the hero, full of self-confidence, watches this with a mocking smile, calling them an escape with a pointless farce. Suddenly, a strange distortion emerges from the earth, which scares it. He asks for fear what it is. The girl rejects back, thanks to the army of skeletons listening to her order. In the air, she thanks them for their help and apologizes with a smile. The hero is amazed by her escape. She returns to the team, exhausted but alive. The leader praises Cruz for his well-done work. Still surprised, the girl asks who the guy is. One of the satellites explains that it is Alan's power, although he considers her dishonest and too powerful. The group discusses why Alan's ability was not activated immediately after the potion. Some people remember, even under pressure from Cruz, there were no signs of strength. Some people recall that Alan's strength is awakened only in the fight with opponents of the rank of S and higher, only at critical moments when the result is solved. This is exactly how he always won, holding true power on the verge. The group concludes that the reason for the misaffection of ability is specific conditions. They analyze the template of action and remember when the force was the last time. The young man smiles and says, "The master was a decisive factor. Only its appearance is able to start Alan." They suspect that Alan drank a gold potion created by the alchemist of the house, even before meeting with Cruz. After all, after the defeat of the Cruz, he did not accept anything. No potions, no reinforcement. The conclusion is obvious. The removal of the seal was a condition for activation. But something does not rest, as if another unknown threat remains. Studying the situation, they see with horror. Alan punches the walls of the dungeon, moving rapidly forward. Errors only accumulate. It all started with the invasion of the housing machine, the betrayal of Tony and the rest, and now, the uncontrolled force of Alan. They need a stop plan. The third fatal mistake is an underestimation of the duration of Alan. It does not fade, as expected, but lasts dangerously long. However, the group leader smiles because this detail confirms one of his hypotheses. He confidently states that Alana can be defeated. The scene shows how the group analyzes the situation. The leader says, although Alan's strength is huge, it can also be his greatest weakness, the one he does not even know. His words are surprised, but a confident smile gives hope. Victor rushes forward and causes a powerful blow. The collision force echoes the battlefield, affecting even those who observe from afar. Without hesitation, it moves on. He kills the opponent with a straight kick. He flies and pierces the wall. The stroke is cracking. Victor clearly seeks to finish the battle. The opponent does not have time to recover. Victor is striking again, throwing it into the air. He is confused, does not understand how everything happened so rapidly and unexpectedly. Watching Victor in silence, the enemy is shocked. His body should be dead, but he is stubborn again. Victor decides to end that. He aims straight to the head, hoping that this time he will stop the enemy. Alan suddenly appears. Smiling with the challenge, he breaks into battle, and with brazen confidence asks if he can join the battle. Its appearance instantly cuts down everyone. Everyone feels what a threat. Alan mocks the enemy's cold, saying that Christopher and Aaron were already smeared on the floor because they believed the idiots. He provokes the team and promises, soon they will follow, laughs and rushes to the attack. During the battle, he mocks the enemy, especially when he notices how he is annoyed. It is amazed by the absence of habitual cold. The opponent, gathering all his forces, charges a magical sword and plans a deadly blow. He believes that one hit is enough. Alan only calmly monitors the approach. When the attack has almost reached the hole, Alan easily blocks it, covered with aura that distorts the space around. The opponent is stunning, as even a magical attack could not break Alan's protection. He stands motionless, ready for counterattack. Alan calmly comments that the enemy's technique is one deadly hit. However, in its current state, it is useless. He confidently states that he cannot even imagine that something is hit. Easily reflecting all attacks, Alan demonstrates the full advantage. He looks at the enemy contemptuously and says that this is how the real character looks like. One who does not have this power cannot stand nearby. Alan with irony asks whether he realized that the difference between them was insurmountable. The enemy is indignant in blaming Alan of not having the right to call himself a hero. He recalls his comrades, for whom he went forward even through their victim. For him, a real character is the one who is trusted, who becomes hope for others. Alan discussed this opinion. He believes that the belief in others is weakness, and a true hero is an absolute power that cracks everything. He says that he does not trust anyone but himself. Heroism is not for him. The opponent is amazed and angry as such a powerful creature distorts the meaning of the hero. But with a new determination, he promises to correct the distortion that the enemy created. With their own hands, without hesitation, Tony Richards reads the news of the hero Derek, who overcame the rank of rank A, and skeptically laughs. He says he will not waste lives for cattle while heroes can be achieved in the heroes. In tavern, Tony talks to the peasants, dreaming of becoming a hero at a time when legends live nearby. He laughs in the face. Heroes, even in villages, are rare, and his dreams seem a joke. But Tony states loudly, the hero is the one who is not afraid of the unknown. Suddenly, a strange old man appears and praises the boy's spirit. It hugs him, saying what he is looking for. Surprised, Tony asks who he is. The old traveler explains. He recalls candidates for hero. All shocked, who is selected by the pastors of the sun without any talent. However, the old man says the boy has eyes full of determination. He sees further than others, dreams of more. Without hesitation, Tony accepts the invitation of Lord Lastberg. Soon the caravan will attack bandits during the trip. Everyone has to prepare for battle. On the road, Tony gets acquainted with other candidates, Magic Ashbourne and Warrior Judrin. Together they train, compete, joke, and become a team. Tony strikes all progress, quickly mastering magic and develops confidently as a sword. Judrin sees his potential and proposes to create his own faction after arriving in the capital. Their connection is growing. Judrin says that many seek glory because the status of a hero is an instant power and respect. But Tony, with a serious look, says he does not want to shine at the expense of others. His goal is to achieve everything alone. Tony and Judrin say goodbye, shaking their hands. They promise to fight the full and possibly come together in the competition for the title of hero. Subsequently, Tony arrives in the capital, where he meets the aristocrat on the recommendation of Albest. He asks the boy's name, marking the beginning of a real adventure. Tony is ashamed to talk about the past, so the hero advises him to relax. The workout will begin tomorrow. Meanwhile, the girl makes fun of asking if he was a village boy who was helped through a sad story. Tony only looks quietly, despite the provocations. She opens his eyes. The image of the hero is a falseness created by the rich who buy the merits of others to control influential adventurers. Even the famous Derek is the son of a noble pedigree that protects the interests of the elite. Tony is shocked, does not understand why they treat the simple adventure seeker. The girl coldly emphasizes that it is naivety to think differently. Tony silently considers this harsh truth. He strongly states that it means that he should become a true legend of his own, even if he has to crawl on the mud. His goal has not changed, to prove his dignity with his own hands. The girl looks surprised, seeing this unwavering in the boy's eyes. Tony shows a stubbornness that causes a smile in the observer. She confesses that she does not hate this side of his character. Soon Derek collects his team, announcing an expedition to a new Dungeon S, a call even for them. Tony notes that Derek only wants to gain glory by repeating the old scenarios. Derek and Tony meet again. They are surprised that this time in one team. They exchange a few words. Yuri notes that Tony does not hesitate even in the mission of S. Tony is responsible without much enthusiasm, but Yuri praises his courage, saying that a group of heroes still impresses him. Tony jokes that Yuri will not reach their level if he relaxes, but trusts him deeply. He is sure that he can. Soon a decisive battle begins in the Wizard of the Dungeon. Yuri, seriously injured, doubts whether it is the end, calls for help. Tony runs to him, but Iron says that nothing can be done. Though Yuri has struck, it was a mutual destruction. Tony's gaze is filled with pain because of a friend's death. The knight watches the battlefield full of bodies, with despair. He questions whether it is all that is left of the elite team. He warns that if the king learns about such losses, there will be serious consequences. The knight orders to leave the dead and watches the Tone, whose posture is intense and full of anger. Tony is watching the knight with contempt, saying that he will only report to the king, putting death for the soulless numbers. Surprised, Tony doubts whether it is the behavior of a real hero. The knight notices his gaze and shouts angry, asking whether Tony went crazy, looking at him. Tony, wounded and dirty, holds the sword firmly, strongly states that he wants to become a real hero. He looks into the eyes of a sitting on the throne, and without hesitation says that the hero's title wants. He looks at the man in front of him, feeling great, and asks himself whether he is the perfect hero that the king wanted, a symbol created by fear and power. Desperation covers him. He screams in pain, doubting whether a true character can exist in this world. Tony freezes, hearing the cold words of the enemy, who raises the weapon, saying that there is nothing more empty than ideals without results. His name is heard, emphasizing the bitter truth that flies in his direction.